All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to say good day based on where you're joining us from. Welcome to the 2025 virtual Siege Climate Justice Fellows Retreat. We'll be here today for a few hours and then come back tomorrow to finish up for a few hours. I did want to share with all of you that you are in our good graces because this is our inaugural virtual retreat. We haven't done a virtual retreat before, and we decided to do it this year because we have so many global and national fellows, and people wanted the opportunity to be able to participate. So we put this virtual retreat together just for our fellows, but of course, all of our fellows and everyone are welcome to participate. So thank you for joining on time, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So I first want to start with um, something that was produced during our in-person retreat in July. We had one of our facilitators also talk to us about storytelling and how to use storytelling in advancing climate communications, and she helped us develop a haiku. And collectively, fellows and Siege staff developed this haiku together as a group, and they decided to name it Sankofa because it embodies the spirit of what Sankofa is. And it goes fight, empower, peace, siege, justice, community, reclaim our stories. And that's really what environmental justice is all about, helping individuals in underserved communities use their voices for advancing uh, policies that help directly impact things that happen within their community. And you see here, we use siege. Siege was sort of a word, like a play on words, because we not only are we siege the organization, but we want to siege power and reclaim the power within our communities through our own voices. So again, welcome. I am Nicole Jackson. I'm Director of Education here at CEEJH, and I'm going to be your guide throughout these 2 days. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'll just keep it brief and I'll say I have a long history in the environmental field from having worked in policy, sustainability, and conservation, and now focusing on environmental justice for the last several years. I want to welcome everyone. I know that we have sort of a global audience today, so I am going to ask everyone to please introduce yourselves in the chat very briefly, just your name and where you're joining from today. So whether if you're in the US, whether it's your state and your city, or whether if you're outside of the US, share your country and your city, just so that our speakers and presenters today can also know where you are joining from. This would not be. And before we get started, I would like everyone to just take a brief moment. We're going to do some acknowledgments in a few, but I want to get us started with a short grounding to really set the tone for today's and tomorrow's workshop. This will not be your ordinary presentation. I will be using a little bit of spoken word during my presentation. That's how I spread my gift and spread the knowledge about no burn and no bury. So I like to just get started with sorry about that. Someone said they could not hear. Let me reshare and make sure I have the sound on. This will not be your ordinary presentation. I will be using a little bit of spoken word during my presentation. That's how I spread my gift and spread the knowledge about no burn and no bury. So I like to just get started with a poem simply I titled called Let Me Give You the Facts.
Listen closely. Let me give you some facts. Burning trash and organic material in my city causes $55 million in health damages, to be exact. High rates of asthma and cancer are the impact. Most of the communities affected are poor and black. So we compost and macerate and mix our browns and greens as a counterattack. We spread compost fever through the variant of education, so we starve in the incinerator. They don't even get a snack. It's three of us, but our environmental impact is big like Shaq. And to update the colonizers, they're still whack, but I live by the quote, a setback is nothing but a setup for a comeback, and never bet against black. Jack. Baltimore, the home of the 12 o'clock boys, we compost in packs. Oh, yeah, and you might even find this funny, but when you compost, you can reduce the rates of urban rabbits and hood bunnies. Be on the lookout for my book, simply titled Compost for Dummies, followed by I'm a soil snob. I like my compost buggy. So,
So this was Mr. Marvin Hayes. Marvin is the executive director of the Baltimore Compost Collective. And Marvin well, virtually came to speak to our fellows when we were engaging in activities and education, learning about food justice and food sovereignty. But I highlighted Marvin here because the way that Marvin communicates is through poetry, is through spoken word, and it's just another unique way to do storytelling to help get our points across. And you heard several things within Marvin's poem here. He not only talked about a little statistics and how things impact his community, but he also told us we learned in just this short amount of time what was causing these harms in his community, right? So some of you may have heard him say incinerators. So this is just to give you a little primer about what we hope to help each of you be able to pull out in some way, be able to craft your stories today. So today, our goals are multifold. We want to help you strengthen your voice as a storyteller because everybody is a storyteller. We just need to find the voice within us and figure out the best way for us to use our own voice to get our messages across. We want to help us to understand how we can build trust and collaboration with some of the people we already know, whether it's within the Siege network or externally. And we want to make sure that we are able to build and new relationships with individuals that we don't know to help us sort of build coalitions. Um, Then we want to help you shape your personal narratives again, using your story to help sway public change and public opinion. And then we want to make sure that we help align your journey with the true journey of what it means to advance and advocate for environmental justice. So we've gone through a grounding, introduction. Today we're going to be joined. We're going to take a couple breaks. I know this is virtual and not everyone is in the same location, so we want to make sure we're being respectful of that. Some of us, it's late in the afternoon or in the evening, and we're so glad that you could join us today. Today we're going to be introduced to two wonderful facilitators, Sonia Demiray and Mariah Barber, but we're also going to be joined by one of our Siege staff persons. Her name's Jessica Berger, and she's the director of communications at Siege. So today we have a packed day, as we will tomorrow, but we do hope that it's very beneficial to you and that you can take some tangible things away to be able to continue to advocating within your communities. So I want to get started with a virtual icebreaker of sorts. I know that I asked everybody to please put their names in the chat and just let us know where you're joining from today. But what I also want you to do in the chat too, to give people another way to know you, right? Mine is on the screen here. I'll definitely add it in the chat later when one of our speakers is presenting when I'm not sharing screen. But I want us to sort of do a virtual icebreaker, but I'm going to do two things. I'm going to ask our first speaker, Sonia, I'm going to ask her to come off of mute and share her icebreaker introduction. And then I'm going to ask everybody else to put to put their things in the chat. So it goes something like this. I want you to share three things. I want you to share your name. I want you to share one word that describes where you come from and one thing that you want to fight for. So if we were doing this orally, I would say, my name is Nikki. One word that describes where I come from is resilient. One thing I want to fight for is clean air in my community. So very simple. So while Sonia is sharing, comes off of mute and share, I'm going to ask you guys to put your responses in the chat.
All right, well, thank you. My name is Sonia. A word that describes where I come from is really globalism. We're all connected. And one thing I want to fight for is the planet for all of us, the health of the planet.
Thank you, Sonia. I see a few people putting things in the chat, but I'm going to ask you to keep putting those things in the chat there. So this morning, we're going to do our first workshop. And of course, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Sonia, who is going to talk to us about, finding our voices, building strength in numbers, making sure that, teaching us how we're all connected. We're going to go into a little bit of how-tos, um, a little bit of how to. She's going to talk to us about different styles of communication and how, our tone can help set the mood for different things and persuasiveness and what it is that we want. And we're going to look at some things that where we all have a shared voice and what our responsibilities are there. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce today's speaker. Well, this morning's speaker, I should say, Sonia Demiray. She is the founder and executive director of Climate Communications Coalition. Sonia has joins us with lots of knowledge from a global perspective. Is a graduate of the University of Spain. She has expertise in extensive communications expertise. She has done training specifically with, I'm sorry, was it McCann? Um, Mc,
Yeah, communication strategy
yes,
certifications with
McCann
McCann
Communication
Erickson.
Strategies, exactly, where she has communications certification, and she also has master's in communication from Towson University. I'm so excited to have Sonia join us here this morning because you guys get to experience what I already know about Sonia. She's an intelligent, fierce person to have on your team in this space. So, without further ado, I won't spend a lot of time on introductions this morning because I know Sonia's work is going to speak for itself. Please help me welcome my colleague and fierce woman in the environmental and climate justice industry, Miss Sonia Demiray.
Well, thank you, Nikki. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I will go straight ahead because we have, as we said, a very packed schedule and share my screen and a presentation, and we'll jump right in to our part. Here, let me see this so that I can see what's going on. And yes, so thank you so much for having me. It's a true honor to be presenting to the Center for Engagement, Environmental Justice and Health and the Global Fellows. I'm actually thrilled because my background comes from all over the planet, and that is why I'm very, very aware of our need to communicate and unite our voices. We're going to have five sections really to the presentation. The first one is about coalition building. The second is about how you can create one unified voice, then how you maximize visibility, and finally some clips on climate and environmental justice communications specifically. Feel free to interrupt me with questions, but we will have dedicated time at the end for questions and answers. So unless it's very immediate, maybe you want to just write it up and tell me at what slide and we can go over it at the end. Communications have dramatically changed over the last 10 years. And today we're at a point where we have not been in decades, if not centuries, I guess. We are going through enormous geopolitical transitions. We are completely flooded with disinformation. The speed of the flooding has never been to this par, with AI, trolls, and bots all over. We are plunging into authoritarianism across many countries, especially in the West, where we did not expect this. There is, because of this authoritarianism, there is a direct aggression against minorities, low middle income people, and anybody who's not with the main party. We are seeing climate change denial, biodiversity collapse. We are pushing the Earth system boundaries beyond where it can be repaired, probably. And of course, the media likes to focus on the conflict. So what we are hearing more than anything is strife, conflict, aggression. So it's chaos. What can we do about it? Really, honestly, nothing. So what we need to do is embrace the chaos and work with it. And I have here a picture that I took as I was embracing the chaos in Washington, D.C. just in July, I believe. So can you hear me all right?
Yep, we hear you great.
Okay, great. Well, let's jump right into the first part, the building a coalition. How do you make your voice heard? Well, first of all, if you're speaking in front of one person, say a political elected official, you're not going to get much reaction. If you speak by the hundreds, you get more reaction. If you speak by the thousands, then you actually have a voice. So the first thing you need to do is to get some sort of power in this entire situation that we're in. Get unity, build a coalition. A coalition is a temporary alliance to fight for a common goal. And it's really different groups from different backgrounds come together to produce a change that we would otherwise not be able to do by ourselves. I've posted here a screenshot from one of the forest coalitions that I'm part of. There's hundreds of organizations in there. It is a very powerful coalition. What do we gain through it? We gain political weight. We gain manpower so that we can actually do the work. Often we get capital. There are more donors and investors if they see that we have a real solid base. We gain a lot of expertise. If there is some group in the coalition that knows more about forests versus other one that knows more about animals, etc., we unite and we create a stronger expertise on the background, but also in the execution of the work of the coalition. You have your accountants, you have your communicators, you've got your strategists, and you've got your organizers, and you build more connections. What it does require is absolutely sharing responsibility. A coalition is exactly that. Everybody's on the same level. You have ground rules for engagement, and you need to maintain the ability to grow and to mobilize. There are different types of coalitions. You can have them internally to a company, for example, that would be a union. External for community, say, for example, the Baltimore Transit Equity Coalition has done a fantastic job. It can be horizontal, like we're looking for a shared outcome, i.e., we want to save the forests. I will be recurring to that example of the forests. It's something that I work with a lot, so that has been my example here. You will see it come out throughout the presentation. It can be a vertical coalition if you, i.e., incorporate the entire chain of command, as we have seen with Amazon. And of course, it can be local, regional, national, and even international, thanks to technology. We have been given some tools that have made us very powerful, and we will go into those as well. Problems or pitfalls of a coalition is if you're not organized, if you compromise excessively, say if you take in a group into your coalition or people who have goals and objectives that differ too far from where you want to go. That is a very dangerous place to be in a coalition because you dilute your goals. If you have unclear goals and timings, rogue members, you saw Nikki here admitting people one by one. You don't want people in there who are actually your enemy and who will take away the information that you have and use it against you or dilute your message. And inconsistent communications is one of the biggest pitfalls that I see in most coalitions. And we will talk about how to avoid that as well. So how do you create unity first? How do you convene a coalition? First, you have to really, really clearly state out the mission, vision, goals, and values. Write them out. The mission is what it is you want to do. The vision is where do you see yourself having made it in the next 20 years, for example. You have to evaluate your strengths and weaknesses and invite other groups and individuals who help you get stronger. That is what I mentioned with not over-compromising, but definitely make sure that you have all your needs fulfilled within the coalition. You have your accountants, you have your communicators. Design your structure, your leadership, and the meeting procedures. And key here is define your decision-making processes. Who is going to take the voice? Is everybody in the coalition voting? Is only the leadership of the different groups within the coalition voting? How does this go about? You have to have your structure in place. Again, technology here is very helpful, and we can do all of this online, especially for national, international coalitions. Provide communications and engagement guidelines, and we will go more into detail with that as well. Make sure everybody knows exactly what their job is and what they say to whom and where. Otherwise it dilutes your credibility and your unity, really, because the way you project, your unity is the more credibility you get from your audiences. And then make sure you have a plan for crises. Crises always occur, especially in the current situation we're at. Preempt the crisis. Make sure you have a manual, maybe, that you have very strict procedures internally. Who is going to be in charge of setting the alert? Who is going to talk to the media? And externally as well, what exactly is going to be said and what sort of contingency. So a huge part of the coalition building is to identify, analyze, evaluate, and collaborate to determine collectively what the achievable goals and objectives are. How do you make sure that you keep this unity? And I'm stealing this from my friend Gabriela Lemos from Maryland Latinos Unidos. You lead the process, not the people. And this is very important. You do not tell people what to do. You collaborate to figure it out. So first of all, you may have to make sure that everyone stays safe and obeys the laws. If anybody breaks a law within your coalition, that reflects very negatively upon the entire group. Listen to everyone within your coalition. And if it gets too complicated, then maybe you are over-compromising and that group is not necessarily a good match for the coalition. Consider that as well, but listen to everyone and understand where they're coming from. Encourage inclusiveness on all age groups, on all races, ethnicities, of course, etc. And help people connect with each other and mediate disputes. There can be, depending on how large the coalition grows, some serious disputes in there. Again, over-compromise is not something you want to do. Create mechanisms for submitting ideas. Maintain a collaborative approach on the decision-making and on the problem-solving. Always maintain a channel for feedback and ensure consistent communications. So how do you ensure the consistency? And this is our second part, our second block here already. Did anybody have some questions before we jump into the credibility part regarding the coalition building? And I apologize, I don't see anything other than the presentation. So if there are any hands raised or something, I'm not sure. I guess not. Okay, then we'll jump into the next. Are you seeing my screen? Building credibility?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
It says
great.
number 2, building credibility.
Yes.
Yes.
All righty. So you need to speak with one shared voice. You all have to say the same thing, because if somebody even deviates a little bit from your core message, you dilute your message to the public. So I mentioned my favorite example, my favorite work is really with forests. So my core message on my website, if you go, was protect the forests. Internally, you have to see, though, what does that mean? Exactly. So it exactly means permanently and legally protect all public forests from logging for profit. You can still manage forests, etc., but don't log for profit, because they are a lifeboat. So the second thing you do, you find all the backup reasons and you find the facts and science that backs it up, because you will have opposition, you will have counter arguments, and you need to be ready. So a couple of good arguments are, well, why? Because forests provide vital ecosystem services, they maintain the biosphere, they support biodiversity, etc., etc. When you have all of that, you know who your audiences are. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to elected officials? Are you talking to the media, schools, community groups, coalition, etc.? And then think about which argument has more weight for each group. For example, if you're talking to elected officials, you probably don't necessarily want to say that, or you don't want to focus necessarily on regulating the climate, especially not if it's a conservative politician, right? You may say something more, well, it improves the economy and it is good for the community health. If you talk to school children, you're probably not going to talk about the economy. You're going to talk about the animals in the forest. It supports the biosphere, right? Gives it home to the bears and the wolves. So the core message always stays the same, but you have to adjust it both with your arguments and your wording to the audience you're speaking to. And again, yeah, there we have the vocabulary, which works for each target audience. And this is a big thing here right now, and I'll go into that in the last part of the presentation. How do you speak to conservatives versus liberals about the same topic? The message can stay the same, but the vocabulary used may have to change. Make sure that everyone within your coalition, especially the leadership of the coalition, knows exactly what vocabulary you're using with whom. And you can even provide speakers cards and toolboxes for everyone. We'll go into that too. And then importantly, also consider cultural differences, including translations is a very simple one, but it goes so much further. Sometimes there's music, sometimes there's especially in Spanish, there's across Latin America, there are different acceptations for the same word. So you have to be very careful with what you're saying. Regarding the message content, as I said, always have your facts and science ready and have your backup data for everything always at hand. If you can show examples, that is the most helpful. Ideally, if you have a local issue, then make it a local example. And always make sure that your call to action, what you want people to do in the end, is a reasonable one, like emails. Email your elected official about, protecting that forest. Asking people to tie themselves to the tree, for example, can be a little much. So coherence, make sure that what you're saying is coherent both internally and externally. If you are internally saying, and this is something that is happening, for example, we're telling the outside audience, oh, we're planting all these trees. And in the inside audience, we're telling our actual members of the coalition, we're telling them, we have the opportunity to plant trees because the Forest Service is logging all of that. So let's go for it. Then there is a cognitive dissonance, which will, if it comes out, first of all, be the end of your coalition because your credibility is gone. But also for the external public, it will be picked up that what you're saying, what you're doing is something different. So be coherent, make sure that you are honest and 100% credible at all times. Make sure you have a logical sequence in your messages. Always say the most important thing up front, like, permanently legally protect all forests would be my key thing that I always say up front, because oftentimes people stop listening to you, especially if you're on the media, they'll switch over something. Make sure they get the key message in the very first beginning. Yeah, that's the level of importance. And keep social historical events in mind. You don't want to talk about protecting wolves if you just had your neighbor's cattle eaten by some wolf, for example. So make sure you're aware of what's going on around you and that it fits your message. If not, it's better to stay quiet. Consistency, always use the agreed upon vocabulary, provide those talking points, distribute speakers cards to your selected speakers. It is a good idea to have spokesperson who are media trained as opposed to giving it to everyone. Again, it depends on the level of your coalition, how big you are. And if it's a local small coalition, then, everybody can speak towards it. I'm talking more about international huge associations for a specific purpose. Do use the technology at hand. And in addition to keeping your vocabulary consistent, make sure you keep your font, your colors, your visual branding consistent. You see here, these ladies are all wearing the same color jacket. They're identifiable. This is important because as you repeat your message over and over and over, there will be a recognition that forms shapes in people's minds. And that recognition is important because it positions you over other organizations. So use the same font, use the same color scheme, use the same tone, use the same core message, even if it's differently executed in vocabulary. So we saw this is the message content. I said always focus on facts and science, but the message form is emotional. So in order for people to accept your content, they have to identify and recognize what you're saying. So the first big point here is who's going to be your messenger. Do you have a member of the impacted community who can be your messenger? Or is it in a way right now, the situation in your country or in your area where it is too dangerous to have a messenger? Then do you want to create a messenger, say like a figurehead or a figurine, a cartoon, for example? There are different ways that you can bring it together. It doesn't always have to be, it has to be someone that people identify with though, and they can recognize themselves in. Emotions drive actions. So speak to the lived realities, keep it local and keep it current if you can. Definitely current, sometimes local if we have a bigger topic is a little bit more complicated. Speak about people and experiences, and if ideally show people and experiences. Imagery, visuals are far more impacting than just the text. Show familiar places if possible. Focus always on the positive effect of the outcomes of your actions. So we don't want to shame anyone. We're saying, you will have clean flowing water as opposed to don't, you have to stop doing this. Focus on the positive, focus on the outcome. And show the value in this behavior. You right now have this unique opportunity to do this. Make it exciting, make it interesting. Ensure fairness and equity and sustainability in all of your messaging. Especially since leadership is not doing this, we have to be very aware of it. Highlight the commonalities, especially within the larger coalition and then beyond, because you want to grow the coalition at all points. Keep your message positive to avoid rejection, and figure out what works best. Go back, what message had the most resonance, what got the most response. Refine that, adapt it, reuse it. So that is the message form. And here we go to the message structure. Once you have a coalition and you have a message, you want to broadcast that message and gain more people, right? So how do you do that? This is the communications funnel, which I'm sure many of you have seen. You start with awareness when somebody first sees your message. You add information as you go through repeat interactions. Finally, you get agreement or conversion that people, yes, okay, this makes sense. This is something I want, I agree with. After that, you go towards loyalty. Loyalty is like, well, these people are saying something that you're not saying, so I'm going to stick with these people. This is my tribe now. And then finally, you move them to action. Again, the call to action has to be realistic. Like stop using plastics is frankly a realistic call to action in most places. Or email your elected officials. Don't ask them to do something that is beyond their means or beyond their education or beyond their space. So the message structure has to be that you're drawing the people in. You customize your core message for your audience, as we saw. You can create relationship maps. That's an interesting exercise in saying who knows who and who can be the messenger for the next group. How do you expand? See what works best, see what got the most likes, most impressions, and then refine it, reuse it often. Build momentum. There's always something, it's interesting for people to say, oh, guess what, tomorrow we're gonna tell you what we're doing in the next year. Our current unfortunate president is very good at this, at creating momentum. He's saying, oh, I will give you the big announcement tomorrow. And everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen. Adapt and reuse your assets. As I said, it's a lot of work to put on social media posts, articles, rewrite them a little bit, mix them up a little bit, but reuse them. Repetition is a good thing, so don't worry about that part. And eventually what we want is recognition. And then the third part of the communications stool, if you will, is that you meet them where they are. Your audiences, you cannot expect your audience to come to you. You have to go to them. And where they are, what platforms you decide to use has to be part of the creative process of how are you going to write, how are you going to show your imagery, because each medium is different. And we go to the third part of this table, basically the third leg of the table for the communications visibility. If you formed a coalition, defined your goals, structure leadership, voting processes, and you have defined your message, backup, you have a united voice, you have acceptable vocabulary, audiences, and you've distributed some messaging cards. So how do you get your message out there? The platforms are the ones that drive access. And also be aware that dear Mr. McLuhan's, the medium is still the message. That is why the messenger is so important. And it's also very important what platforms you use, because it is very different if you see a video on TV versus you see one on TikTok. The way you interact with it, depending on who you are, if you're older or younger, is going to be very different. One is, it's your tribe. The other one is, it's something strange out there in the world. While for an older person, it will be, yes, this is far more close because they're more used to that. So the main media, obviously, you have TV. It's pretty much out of reach for most of us, unless you have budget for public service announcements, etc. Radio is actually not a very expensive medium, and it's one that it is still the biggest medium across the globe. It is something that reaches everyone, so it's depending, especially if you have a very rural communities that you're trying to reach are very spread out. Radio is often a very good medium. And I'm not talking about commercials here, I'm talking also about public service announcements, interviews, talking to your local DJs, talking to the news, sending them press releases, etc. Of course, you have print, and we'll go into that next about how you can get your word out through print media. But really what grassroots activism mostly is relying on, because it is free, is online. So you have web, you have social, and then of course you have in-person community and direct personal. The ground rules for all communications are that you have to be clear and you have to have a proofing procedure. One of the worst things you can do is finally get out into the media and blow something out, have hundreds of thousands of people see something, you have a big typo in the middle or something dumb like that. So have clear and accessible language, use plain language, don't go into too many scientific or legalisms or anything like that, and have a coherent structure. When I say proofing procedure, I'm also meaning intercultural proofing procedure. In many Inter-Americas campaigns that I ran, because of Spanish having so many different acceptations in different countries, I put together a team with one person in each country, and we'd everybody would have to check off and make sure that they take the same sense from that translation or from that write-up as everyone else. So make sure that you do have double check, triple check everything. You want to be very clear on what you're saying, and you want to be inclusive. Visually, that shows up with, showing faces, avoiding clutter, using large letters for more important things. But it also comes obviously from your writing. Use platform-specific versions. So this is a tricky part that I've seen a lot, especially by people who are publishing on the web, that you just produce one post and you use it for, say, Instagram and Facebook and X, etc. That's a mistake simply because there are safe zones that you will be running into. So, for example, as you probably know, Facebook is horizontal, Instagram is square, X is mostly vertical. So make sure you reformat that's the imagery and the text to fit your platform. Use visual aids at all times. Captions are key, of course, especially for translations, but also a lot of people cannot put on the sound on their computers, say when they're browsing the web at work, which most people are. Use graphics, use icons, use flying in words, for example, especially if you have video, that reinforces the message. Use quality audio and video. And this is a good one. This is a tricky one too. You want to make sure that your message comes across very clear and neat because it represents you. However, you do not want it to be too glossy because then they say, oh yeah, well, they're just swimming in money, especially if you're asking for donations. You know, there has to be a happy medium. So just make sure that you're very clear and it's very accessible. And always make sure that you're not incurring in plagiarism, you're adhering to all copyright laws. With photography and videography, ideally you use your own. If not, there are some websites such as Pixels, etc., that will provide you with free footage and photography, but triple, quadruple check and that you do have all the rights to use the material that you're using. Then how do you so excuse me, yeah. So then the next thing, once you've decided what platform, you have to make sure that within your communications, you are safe and that you are united. So the internal communications here hold it all together. So that way you're all on the same page and you all speak with one voice. You have the talking points, you have a way of updating your coalition members. You have an emergency plan, you have your strategy, police, your unity, and your team. What you're going to say is the next big thing, but above all, how much anonymity do you and your members need when you are speaking? Do you want to sign your articles? Do you want to sign it with your coalition name or with an actual personal name? I have found a lot of articles have been rejected because people are not putting their name to it, but there are circumstances, we haven't gotten to this point here yet, I think, but there are circumstances where that is something you want to avoid. So you may want to keep, in that sense, all the phone numbers, addresses, names, pictures of activists off the internet and off the media, but also internally consider encoded messaging channels such as Telegram, Slack, Viber. We have had instances here in the United States now where environmental and climate justice groups are scrubbing the web, getting rid of past communications and downloading all the data they need because they have been threatened by the administration. Make sure that you publish internal regular communications to maintain your team unity and coordination so that everybody knows where you are, what you're saying. Be very clear about what can be disclosed outside your group and what not. Ensure participation in the development of your internal external communications. So in your internal regular communications, you can also say, hey, we're going to post these 4 things this week, for example. Be ready because you want them to repost, you want them to amplify. So this is where the unity comes in, where you are all on the same page, you are safe and you have safe communications and pretty much immediate communications. Again, technology makes this all very possible now and it's mostly free. So to reach your audience, we mentioned TV is mostly inaccessible. Radio is a little bit more accessible, especially if you go through interview stages, etc. But you can use earned media and social media, which are basically free, and use them as much as you can and explore them as much as you can. What you can do is to create a platform map. We talked about a relationship map earlier to see who your audiences are and who knows whom. The platform map is similar. Create a media map and platform map. For example, if you're trying to talk to an elected official and you know he's going to be on the New York Times and on TikTok, well, you're going to go to TikTok because you can afford it. So figure out who goes where, and of course, we're talking more community groups, etc. But see where your key audiences are and see how you have to creatively develop your message to fit that platform and then fit your message and the perfect arguments for this audience in there. Earned media is basically public relations. And you can have public relations training. It's not that complicated. If you know how to write, you can look it up as well. It's really a formatting issue. The key here is the media lists. And those are often, you can purchase them for a lot of money. but sometimes you have your personal contacts in the media, or you start developing one over time. You send them the press releases, media alerts about events, you send them backgrounders about specific topics, you create events and invite them, etc. A more typical non-professional PR approach are letters to the editor and opinion editorials. Those are the key tools we have as regular citizens. Letter to the editor is a quick turnaround in response to a story. It's about 150 to 200 words, ideally the next day. You know, where you say, for example, thinning the forest prevents wildfires. You immediately turn around and say, no, it doesn't. It makes forest fires worse, for example. A letter to the editor is, opinion editorial is longer. It's 600 to 800 words. And you basically provide a thesis, you provide the data, and you give your conclusion. It's you're exposing an issue. Articles are really something very interesting because you can, especially if you make friends with some journalists, you can write together or you can write it yourself and pitch a story. But no matter which way you go, you can provide the research, the visual support that will carry the story, and testimonies. You know what happened to whom. Again, we're going back to the people. We need to be as people focused always as possible. So testimonials and testimonies are great. Seek out radio stations and podcasts that may pick up your story. If you have an expert that can be interviewed, that is fantastic. You know, shop that person around, get as much coverage as you can. And then prosumerism is, it's a new tool that is in all of our hands. Prosumerism refers to the fact that we are all producers and consumers of information. We're all on the media thanks to that wonderful little phone that you see there. And it is enormously powerful. It really has democratized the access to hundreds of thousands of people. Before we had to go through a journalist, etc. Now we can go direct. So while it is a fantastic opportunity, also be very careful how you use it, because you can remove your credibility or you could break your unity of your coalition. Basic tools we have is to publish online. You can create a website. You can, I hate to promote Google, but Google Sites, for example, is very simple. It's like editing a document, and that way you're on the internet and you can add pages as you go and have a presence online, which again gives you more credibility. You can also publish your articles or investigations in long form on blog posts or Substack. You can use your social media handles to actually refer back to those Substack blog posts, websites, or any articles or radio interviews that you've given. So use those social media, use all of them. Yes, X is a mess, but it still gives you coverage. So don't engage with the trolls, but use all the media you have to get as much exposure as you can to your message. You can create additional handles. So for example, I know certain people who have 20 Instagram handles, and they send them back and forth between each other. So that way the algorithm immediately brings up the story. It's a simple trick. Anybody can do that. Tag the coalition and its members so that they can, again, repost and also co-post with other coalitions. That is a very interesting part, because when you co-post, both all the members of your coalition will hopefully are following you, but also the followers of all the other coalition, and you double your visibility maybe. It's coming out of our silos. And unfortunately, a lot of even environmental and climate justice organizations have siloed themselves. We need to open up and create this grassroots infrastructure amongst all of us. Again, the globalism that I mentioned at the very beginning. Create short videos for social media and be as inventive as you want to. We've all seen the TikToks and Instagrams, and those are really, especially for audience under 30, the number one source of getting their attention. And then, of course, you can be on one-on-one. You can talk to your community groups, your schools, your church, engage and inform them to get their support. Again, I mentioned Google. It's very easy to create a shared drive for the coalition. These shared drives are really good also because you can control who has access. You can have all your content, your photography, your posts, etc. on there so people can draw them down, the people of you who you trust, and repost them. And create a website for the external audiences so they know who you are and that they can refer to you. And then you can also provide toolkits, be it for if you have a huge coalition, regionally, what is happening might change, and you can provide, customized toolkits for your coalition members to show them what to post and how to post it and when to post it based on what's happening right there and then in each region. And then a couple of tips on style and climate, tone and style, for climate and environmental justice. I mentioned at the beginning that we are in difficult times. It is very chaotic. Number one rule, keep yourself, your team safe, obey the law, but stay engaged. It is really important now more than ever that we are out there. So the socioeconomical and political climate can affect what and how you say it. It affects the vocabulary you can use. And I have put here on the right some things that we've had to shift since the new administration took over and said, for example, we cannot mention diversity, equity, inclusion, or environmental justice. So instead of saying minorities or low middle income or something, we say it is something for all Americans. Instead of saying climate change, which is being denied by too many people around here, we can refer to the extreme weather events and the increasing extreme weathers. Instead of talking about translations, we have to give people access to the information. Instead of talking about immigrants, we're talking about the new Americans. So there are ways of shifting your vocabulary to make sure that you get published, because otherwise a lot of these publications just won't take your article anymore. And you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by insisting on using the wording that you're used to. It also determines what media you can be on, both basically opinion-wise, is it conservative, is it a liberal outlet, is it something that speaks to you or not? And we have censorship. I mean, right now in CBS, we have people being taken off the screens because they are too critical of the current regime. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting has been shut down. So this is censorship, straight and forward. So obviously you cannot be on those media, find a way around it. It also includes what technology and what platforms you can be on. I mean, TikTok, it's a come and go here in America. Technology, it's also, again, in China, they have some very different platforms. So use what you have, the best you have. What is important is that your core message has to stay the same. You can use that you can change the vocabulary, you can change the platforms, you can change the form, but make sure your core message stays the same and that the drum beats keeps going. Because eventually this is going to change, and then there's going to be hopefully our time to shine. Tips to obtain agreement, both internally and externally in your communications, is to stay positive, stay optimistic, no shaming. Do not say, oh, you're the biggest polluter in the world, us, that doesn't help. Immediately here, you get pushback against everything. So stay positive, stay optimistic. We can do this if we work together. Talk about people before you talk about the planet, both in our leadership and most community members. People take priority over biodiversity or climate, unfortunately. Implicitly respect social and economic inequities. While earlier we could do it explicitly, now we can do it implicitly, meaning basically, for example, what mediums are you going to use? If there are controls over certain television channels, or if low middle income people do not have access to certain medium, you can use a different one. So you use the radio, is something that pretty much everyone has access to and listens to it mostly in the car when they're doing their chores in the morning. So figure out how to reach within the circumstances of your country. Include climate reality into everything. And this is absolutely key. We need to have the drumbeat going. The climate change and environmental justice should be part of everyday conversation. And it's good to see more of the liberal media actually doing that in every single story that I'm seeing lately. It is because the temperatures have risen so much, or it is because this and that. This is implicitly including it in every single story. Go back to the issues so that people make the connection. Oh, it is climate change and it is environmental justice that is at the root cause of all of these issues. And again, go from sacrifice to solutions. Not that you have to cut this, but you will gain that. And remember that all of it is emotional. So go back to your messenger, show the people. A face is far more effective of a child than a picture of a beautiful sunset, for example. And yes, embrace the chaos. And while you're doing it, do make sure to take care of yourself and protect yourself. And then we have some time for question and answers.
Thank you so much, Sonia. That was wonderful. I see a lot of hearts and hand claps and thumbs up. So we want to take a brief moment. It is 10:58. We want to take a brief moment to give you guys the opportunity to ask Sonia some in-depth questions. So we have quite a bit of us on the call today. So I am going to call us those individuals that raise their hand in order. And the first hand that I saw, wait a minute, where did it go? Oh, Lynn. Okay. So Lynn, if you could please come off of mute, tell Sonia and the team here where you're joining from today, and then go ahead and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Sonia, beautiful job. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Um, I guess it's like, where do you begin? This is all new to me. I'm here as an observer, as you know. So if you have a cause that is dear to your heart, what's the very first step?
Can you give me, for example, for me, protect the forests, correct? So my very first step is to find other people who believe in the same and to create a coalition so that we can work together. Because as much as I love the forests, I cannot protect all the public forests across the country or beyond. So we need to work together. The bigger the coalition gets, the more power you will have. And you can create, there are many international coalitions that I'm part of for the forests, for example, like the International Biomass Action Network. And that is 500 organizations or more globally fighting woody biomass for energy. So the first thing I think, if you have something that you see that needs to be changed, start getting allies, start building a
Yes.
coalition.
Second question, I'll make this fast. Is this material in a book form anywhere that people could buy, or?
My husband just told me I should write a book.
Yes, I agree. I'll vote. Yes, do it.
I'm
It's
sure
all
there's a
there,
lot of
so you just put it in a book
books.
format, eh?
Yeah, maybe, yes. But I'm sure there's a lot of communications books out there. What happens is when you study communications, though, it goes into a lot of detail and numbers and statistics and how do you do this. This sort of more of like a grassroots approach, and we are doing what we can with what we have. I have not seen that anywhere, and I think yeah, that might be a good idea. Thank you.
Just an assemblage of the visuals would make a book in itself.
Oh, wonderful. Good. Yeah, that's a good start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And Lynn, tell us again where you're joining from today.
I'm in Calgary,
Nice. In Canada, correct?
in Canada.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. We
Thank
have a
you.
few folks from Canada on here today, actually. So next we are going to go to, in order, Stephanie Yarborough, then Mandy Tan, then Jessica Clark.
Hello, Ms. Sonia. I want to first of all thank you for your information, such a wealth of knowledge, and would love to explore more. I'm calling from Wilmington, Delaware, and my question is, you mentioned several times about your supportive data and research, and just wondering, where do you go for those credible data sources? Do you just like use Google Scholar, or where would you find those?
Yes, I always go to peer-reviewed articles. Most university libraries will have only peer-reviewed material to you. If you have access to any of those online databases and you can purchase access, unfortunately, that's expensive. I'm continuing student, so I have access to everything, which has been really, really nice because things change so fast that the science is changing about, say, the world system science, planetary systems. So, and just to keep track of that, you kind of sort of need to have continuous access. If you're looking, well, I'm not sure what exactly, Jennifer, what your topic is. If it's, for example, health, you may find a lot in the health department and in government records as well. What type of information would you be looking for?
Oh, I was just speaking in general, like,
Okay.
yeah, I'm not looking at any material thus far, but if I were to go the path which you were suggesting, if you were to
Mhm.
for Congress or anyone, they are looking for that evidence-based material in order to build their decisions on. At least
Yes,
I hope they are. And then at that point, you want to be able to go and search for supportive documents to share.
absolutely. Yeah, so I will absolutely peer-reviewed articles. Don't take anything off the internet unless it's peer-reviewed and published there as peer-reviewed,
Right.
mostly PDFs. It takes some time and it takes some effort to find the documentation that you need to support your cause, but it is one of the most important things to do upfront. You have to have your data ready and ready to go because there's always pushback very quickly in our fields.
Yes, I understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mandy, I think.
Yeah, hi y'all. Thank you again, Sonia, for the presentation. I really appreciated just like hearing some more ideas on how to set up the process of coalition building, for example. And I'm calling in from the Houston area in Texas. My question for you is that I know that we talked a little bit about in the presentation about always like integrating the climate reality into our communication so people can like make that link between the consequences we're facing and climate change, but then also considering like the current conservative administration in the US and a lot of other places where even mentioning climate change can just automatically get people to tune out or just discredit your argument. And I know that there's
Mhm.
like discourse in the climate space about people like trying to navigate like how to mention climate change, if it's even like productive to mention climate change or to just like mention like the public health solutions without talking about climate change, for example. I was just wondering if you could explain more on your thoughts on this discourse and like if you have any examples of people like being creative and how they navigate talking to more conservative audiences, for an example. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I think the last slide I had two examples. For example, increasingly extreme weather events instead of climate change, or all Americans are suffering from this. If you want to refer to, cumulative impact communities or things like that. Especially, again, it depends on your audience. You can use climate change in the liberal media. You need to talk to everyone. We need to get everyone on to the same message. So when you talk to, or not necessarily media, just face to face, right, to somebody who's more conservative, most importantly, you don't want to create rejection. You don't want to create opposition. You want to keep the dialogue open. If you have the opportunity to talk to someone more directly, you're just saying, what is your opportunity? What is your opinion about this? And then you take it back from that. Importantly, on social media, you want to take naysayers off your coalition platform and engage with them separately. If somebody, I don't know, I'm not sure what your situation is right now. You mentioned public health in Texas. If you have a coalition, say in Texas, you're saying the smoke from the recent fires is impacting low middle income communities dramatically, and this is because of climate change. You could start with, have you seen how people are suffering from asthma, etc.? Why do you think that is? That's the smoke. Isn't that terrible? And it's because it's been so dry and hot. And then you say, yeah, these extreme weather events keep going. The message comes through. You're saying the same thing. You're just not using those trigger words. You have to stay away from trigger words on many of the media right now, unfortunately. And you had a first coalition. I don't know. What is that? Does that answer your question at all?
No, yeah, that makes sense. So just
Okay.
like still finding common ground, for
Yes.
example, of the consequences of like public health, for example, without mentioning climate change explicitly, if that is a trigger word for the audience.
Exactly. So you say, have you noticed all of this? And then how can we improve it? Because your call to action should still be in there. What can you do to make it better? Well, maybe we shouldn't use as much water, or things like that. I mean, basic stuff. And that would, that is a logical sequence in your argument as well that people can understand. Going into why the water is missing and all of that, that will be your next step. It is this, well, we have been maybe using too much upstream, maybe the headwaters are drying out, things like that. And you said at the beginning of your question, I believe you asked about a little bit more of information about how to start with a coalition building. Ideally, you already have a small group or maybe a large group of people, and I'm assuming you're talking about public health, who are on your side, and you've been talking about these things. Create a group, give yourselves a name, create a little group, create a website if you want, and make sure you're all on the same, you can follow those steps that were on the first section of the slides. And then see what other groups would fit into your coalition. I mean, public health. So you probably have the moms of school children's, right? We have the school bus issues here while driving on diesel, for example. What are the other main things that are happening? Well, you have a lot of. What are the main topics that you would be addressing? I don't know what coalition you already have or what situation you're in, so it's hard for me to figure out what your next steps would be.
Yeah, no worries at all. As of now, I'm personally just focused on like disaster relief and disaster preparation, especially like after the Central Texas flooding.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have a group already, or you just want to start?
Currently uninvolved officially in any groups, and just like trying to figure out like what groups are in my area.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great start. Check out all the groups that are in your area and see if they are actually coordinating and if they are working with each other, or are they working against each other? Because that is something that happens a lot. There are a lot of groups out there and they can undercut each other sometimes without knowing it. So that would be a really good function for you to start out with. And in that way, you already position yourself in you understand the different groups, and you can, you could actually start coordinating them a little bit.
It sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jessica.
Hi, thank you so much for the wonderful and informative presentation. I was curious what your thoughts were in terms of communication in this era that seems to be moving towards like a kind of like an anti-empathy mentality. Because
Yes.
a lot of our storytelling um, often has to do with inciting empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this kind of like cultural shift in some ways that pushes back against that. So like how do you manage communications when there's that sort of cultural shift that's taking place right now?
Yes, and that's a really good question. And yes, that's something that I'm puzzling with myself quite a bit. The empathy is still there. Unfortunately, the empathy is just between certain groups. I mean, we have, for example, Mandy just mentioned the floods of Texas. There's a lot of empathy towards all these people affected by the floods of Texas. Are they affected the same by people being picked off the street and sent to countries where they will probably be either jailed or murdered? No. So the question isn't necessarily the empathy itself. It's more like growing empathy towards from certain audiences towards other groups. And they're the only thing that we can use here is any sort of commonalities. They're all parents, they have children, you know, for example, like that, in that direction. We need to find that link. I think based on in my opinion, I think it will break pretty quickly, this entire, for example, lack of empathy towards immigrants, because we all know many, we are friends with many, and in fact, this country desperately needs them for work and for everything. And the minute we will see the impacts of kicking out all of our new Americans, as we have to call them, it will backfire. So it is hard to make any sort of audience have a 180 on any position that they have right now. I think when you're talking to really, really aggressively conservative people who are against any sort of well-being of anyone other than white, middle, and upper class, then there's no point talking to them right now. I think we have to wait for the tables to turn just a little bit, and then go to the commonalities, if that makes sense. Okay. Sorry, I don't have any better news.
Oh, thank you, Sonia. I saw a heart from Jessica, so I think you adequately answered. We have another question actually from Octavia.
Octavia.
Hi.
Hey.
First of all, thank you everyone like CEEJH for having, this inaugural virtual retreat. And Sonia, thank you so much for your time and energy today. I'm Octavia calling in from Washington, D.C. And I have two questions. Maybe the second question is more of a thought. My first question really is about how do you measure success in your communication strategies, especially when sometimes the impact isn't immediately visible or quantifiable? And then my next question slash thought is, well, really, I want to know about your experience when we talked about like some people that are more conservative versus liberal or this way or that way, but I'm really wondering about the science communication part of things. Do you have an example or any best practices for teaching scientists how to communicate themselves? Or do you find that it's a best practice that we have some communication experts come in, work with scientists, and then give that information out there? And then lastly, I just say I have two, but I do have a third thing. I appreciated your comment on saying that we shouldn't be focusing on trying to fix the chaos, but really how do we maintain and how do we operate within the chaos? I really appreciated that.
Good, thank you, Octavia. All right, these are really good questions. So how do you measure success? Depending on, as a coalition, how many members do you have? How many more people are going? So that is, and success is both quantity and quality. You don't want to just have any sort of, as I said, you don't want to dilute your goals or your purpose. So that is the quality part. And the quantity part would be, how many people are joining your coalition, how many people, how is your network growing, and how are people interacting? Of course, the goal is, for me, it would be ideal to, finally establish some legislation that will permanently protect all public forests. That is my end goal. That would be, then I'm happy, then I can go to bed. But in the meantime, yes, measuring success, likes, reposts, growing your coalition, notoriety, that people recognize who you are, who your group is. Again, that goes back to the branding and colors and fonts, things like that. As to science communications, that's a really good question, Octavia, because I'm struggling with that a lot. In fact, I'm currently in a graduate degree, and it's all about science. And how do you transmit this really complex knowledge to the entire population? It's really, you have to take out specific data and make it digestible and then push it out. Oftentimes, the whole thing cannot be, the whole paper, for example, peer-reviewed paper, cannot be transmitted to the general public. But what you can do is more like a pointillism sort of picture. You know, you paint the different dots, and in the end, they see the full picture. That's a lot of the approach social media really has. You don't tell the story. You only have these 1-minute clips, for example, or what is it, 50 characters or something. You give them all these different dots on and to paint the full picture, you know, like in forests, from the fire to the biodiversity to the carbon to the nitrogen to you know, your water. And in the end, people who are following you will understand the bigger picture. So you really have to break it down. Letting scientists themselves communicate. If you have a very well-informed audience that is already in that field, fantastic. To the general public, it's usually goes over some people's heads. So I do think that it is better to go through a communication strategy where you are breaking down the findings and making them understandable and digestible for the general audiences, and then pushing them out piecemeal. You can have it always with the final finding at the beginning, but then, you know, because of this. So it's really like your core message and your argumentation underneath it.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, my pleasure.
Thank you,
Anyone
Octavia. And then Sonia, just really quickly, so we'll know how to proceed. Did you have like a short breakout activity or anything prepared?
Well, I was wondering if people would want to, for example, have an activity such as trying to build a coalition. I can't see how many people we have, 30. So we could actually do that all as a group if we pick one, or we make it 2 different groups if you'd like. But we only have 10 minutes left, so it's going to be a very quick activity.
Okay. I think we can do that, incorporate that. Just because after this we have like a break. So we have a few minutes.
Okay.
If we go over a little bit, we have a break incorporated. And I think because of the great questions that we have, an activity would be great.
Wonderful. So what we could do is pretend right now that we are creating a coalition. And I think it could be, for example, Nikki, do you have a specific one you might want to do? Maybe environmental justice or environmental justice and health. We could create a coalition on that.
Let's see, environmental justice. If you have an idea, throw it in the chat. I'm trying to think of what really resonated with our fellows throughout the
Yes,
modules.
good idea. Throw it in the chat. Any ideas around which topic do you want to create a coalition? We could create one. Mandy, maybe.
Yeah, I think environmental justice and health is a good one. We did a module on like the cumulative impacts of different areas, and people seem to really resonate well. Also with like maternal health um, outcomes.
Okay. What one did you say before the maternal health? You said cumulative impacts.
Yes, cumulative
Okay.
impacts. Mhm.
Well, should we say community health for now? Alberto, Arevalo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Albert, did you have a question? I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand before.
I just put it up. I was trying to figure out where it is because we lost internet at our office, so I'm joining in through my phone. But Sonia, thank you for all that information. One thing, because it's top of mind. At a previous conference that the CEEJH was hosting, there were scientists from the Union of Concerned Scientists that were talking
Oh.
about resources, about
Mhm.
science communication. Just curious to see if you've used that. And then second, I'm just generally interested in how you started your organization with, climate communication. What kind of inspired you to kind of create these kind of dialogues with coalitions?
Thank you. Should I take that before we go to the potential coalition creation, Nikki? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So I love UCS. They're fantastic. Great organization. If you don't know them, please check them out, Union of Concerned Scientists. And I have worked with them and we cross-promote. We're not an official coalition, but they promote, they repost what I post and I repost what they post. So we help each other in that way. I have actually not seen their climate science communications yet, but I will definitely check that out. Thank you for letting me know. It's just my experience because the science I'm working with, the Earth system sciences and forest and climate, is so complex that it really has to be broken down. And most scientists are in their own little silo already. And then thank you. How did I come to this? Well, it was my idea. My background, I've had an ad agency for 25 years, Demiray Inc. My background, as I said, was from the Complutense. I've licensed in Sciences and Information, which is advertising, public relations, and journalism. And I did the master's in the US and did several certifications on that. And I've always been working on communication strategy and communications execution, producer, etc. Some huge campaigns, many of them international, across Americas, and also working a lot with governments. And my entire life, I have been very dedicated to environmental conservation and community equity. And I've volunteered my entire life in that, and I've been helping organizations communicate on behalf of that. And then it occurred to me that really, I'm not enjoying at all what I'm doing with the government communications and NIH, etc., that I should focus on climate communications and also educate all the environmental and climate justice organizations on how they can actually get their word out and how they can work together, because a big problem that I'm seeing within our climate and environmental justice communities is that, again, we're working in silos. A lot of these organizations are defending their memberships, and they don't want to share. They don't want to work together because, oh, what if the member goes over there? This is harming us, and this is harming our progress. So my whole aspect, and I decided this in 2000, basically. No, in 2000, I started my ad agency, and 2020, I decided to make a shift and close my ad agency and focus on getting the word out on climate and environmental justice, because our community is not doing a good job at that yet. We're working on it. So that's how I came up with it. But thank you for the question.
Thank you, Sonia. So I'm going to ask, if you have any more questions for Sonia, please put them in the Q&A box so that we can get through an activity. So I think there are enough of us, Sonia, to split into two groups. But
Okay.
before we do that, yeah, I think you should use this space to provide instructions and give guidance in what we're going to do. And then we'll break up into two different groups. I like that. I think it's Octavia put in the chat, CEEJH Fellows for Community Health Coalition. I like that. So
Okay, great. Well, let's create two groups then. And we're going to create, both groups are going to create the same coalition, because then we can compare. Maybe we can come back 5 minutes before ending and compare what you've done. So CEEJH for Community Health Coalition. The first step is going to be, what other groups are you going to invite to grow your coalition? Do you want to give yourself a different name, or is this the name that you want to proceed with? Make sure that you have all your functions covered within your coalition building. Do you have all the audiences covered so that you can reach them? Do you have, the different age groups? Who are you inviting to your coalition? Do you have communicators? Do you have accountants? Do you have politicians? Create a functional group. See who else you would invite. And then define your decision-making process and your structure. And I don't think we're going to get too far more than that, but that is a good start that you could build on outside if you'd like.
Thank you, Sonia. So while I'm putting everyone in groups, do you mind putting those 3 items in the chat
Sure.
for people so that they can see them?
Yes.
So really quick question for you guys while I'm creating breakout rooms. Do you have any questions about what Sonia just explained that we're going to do in the breakout rooms? All right, so if there are no questions, I'm going to start moving people to breakout rooms. I do ask that when you're in breakout rooms, that everybody is courteous. You give everyone the opportunity to share if they want to share. Um, but I will ask for you guys, someone to sort of be the scribe for your group, and then choose someone to be the spokesperson so that when we all come back, we can do things in an orderly fashion. But others will have an opportunity to speak as well. But those are the 2 things that I ask you to do, in addition to what you're going to be doing based on Sonia's instructions. All right, so opening the groups. Sonia, do you think 10 minutes is a good time?
Yes, or maybe even less, given the time.
Okay.
Like 5 minutes.
All right. All right, so I'll wait for everybody to get in the groups and then I'll start a timer. Jess, I did not, I intentionally didn't put you in a group. I wasn't sure if you wanted to go in one, but if you want, I can certainly send you over to a group. Uh, I can't hear you, Jess. Sonia, I'm going to set a timer for 7 minutes actually,
Perfect.
because I know they'll take probably like 2 minutes to figure out who's going to be the spokesperson and everything, and then have 5 minutes for the activity. So let me start the timer. Jess, I did not hear you. I think uh, something may be going on with your sound again today. All right, welcome back. So we're gonna recap from our breakout activity. So I'll turn it over to Sonia before we wrap up Sonia's portion of the presentation today.
Well, thank you. All right. Who were the spokesperson for the 2 groups? Could you come off mute, please? I don't see anyone.
I can. I was in group 1.
Okay, great. Thank you, Octavia. Do we have someone for group 2?
This is Albert. I can take the lead.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. So let's start. Octavia, did you finish a well, okay, so both groups are going to be CEEJH fellows of CEEJH for Community and Health Coalition. Octavia, do you want to take the lead? Who would your group invite to this coalition?
Yes, so we talked about really having a globalized network of people or organizations to support very specifically community health. And we talked a lot about flooding. And so these types of people would be first and foremost the communities that are directly affected by these types of disparities, specifically some credible leadership, credible voices, credible maybe nonprofit organizations that are in those communities as well. And we also talked a lot about having our youth and then being able to integrate the academics, for lack of better terms. Those are the types of people that we decided to invite. And very specifically, we want to make sure that these people are aligned with our values and aspirations.
Very good. Thank you. So it's a global group, really. Fantastic. Alberto, do you want to say which ones you have decided upon?
Sure. First, I think from the individuals that shared, mostly were in the greater Washington area. So if we were to invite partners, it would obviously be more region specific. So individuals that are impacted by our issue that we're agreed on is clean air. So impacted by roadways, especially neighborhoods that are adjacent to the Beltway. And then I just ended with how timely our conversation is, being that the House is trying to overhaul the Clean Air Act.
Yeah. All right, great. So you're focusing more on health, flooding. So the groups that your group A was going to integrate are mainly youth and academics. I think who else could you invite to that group then? You could invite schools. You could invite healthcare professionals. You can invite transportation people, because one of the biggest sources obviously is transportation. So once you have your core mission and vision, I mean your purpose, I should say. Once you have your purpose, you can figure out who can get you to this purpose. And then within those groups that you have chosen, make sure that you have all the functions that you will need to be an effective coalition, so that you have somebody who knows how to talk to the media. You have people who know to talk to leadership in the different regions. Regarding the air and roadway, the group 2, I guess you didn't specifically look at what groups might join, right? I mean, I'm thinking obviously BTEC and American Lung Association and health as well, Association for Nurses for Healthy Environment, things like that. Did you have any specific groups that you were talking about, Albert?
No.
Uh-huh.
Just because we were all in the dark with like the instructions. So we were just kind of like just figuring out what what is an issue we could all get behind on, which
Okay.
was clean air.
Yeah,
So
well, that's a big one. And that's a huge one with our departments of the environment, isn't it now? Because we're not counting anymore. All right, great.
yeah.
Well, very good. Did you decide on, did you make it to step 2, mission and vision? Did you write something up specifically?
We did not.
No. Okay. Octavia, did your group do that by any chance?
We didn't speak specifically on what our mission, vision, and goals were for our coalition. We did talk about our, I guess, overall like decision-making processes and how we would approach maintaining the coalition, but I'm not sure if you're going to ask that question next.
Well, yes, why don't we go to that then? I mean, deciding a mission and vision in 2 minutes is a little much anyway. So,
I feel you.
do you want to talk towards your structure and decision making?
Yeah, so I mean, to really put it plainly and please anybody else from group 1, feel free to come off mute. We really want to make sure that the heart and the core of our coalition is rooted in a replicable plan. which is based on the needs of the community. That way we can make informed decisions on who we want to invite or who we are deciding to serve, or really specifically like how we can reach whatever goals we are going to make, because it's really hard to start goal setting if we don't have that vision or that foundation, which is going to be rooted in the community specifically. We also had someone from our group give a really great example. I want to say it was Yotam, and he has an organization called the Green Space Initiative, which is in Malawi. And he really focuses on having the youth contribute to the area. It's a youth-led organization that advocates for climate and social and environmental justice specifically. And I mean, they go from, climate education, advocacy and awareness, tree planting, cleaning up, all the things that we love to do. And so I just thought that that was a really good example of the coalition we were trying to replicate, something that may be youth-led, youth-based, and also really based in like what the community specifically needs.
That sounds really great. So when you say your replicable plant, you're replicating what this organization in Malawi was doing. That was your plan, to go to the community and ask, basically, like a survey, or?
Yeah, somewhere between surveying or really specifically talking. Well, I guess the surveys are in different formats. We have digital surveys. We can do surveys in person and all the things. And I think a mix of that would be ideal for what we are going for. And the bottom line is that whatever plan or approach we have, it's accessible to the specific community that we are going to be choosing. So if in-person works better for this space, but not in another space, we want to make sure that our coalition is that adaptable.
That's the platforms, right? So you need to, in order to reach all you use, meet people where they are, as we say. So platforms drive access, very important, and emotions drive acceptance. Before I ask Mariam for her question, Albert, do you want to talk towards your structure, and did you get to that point about the structure and decision making by any chance in group 2?
We had a conversation about just past coalitions individuals have been a part of. I think the common theme was, having a democratic process, ensuring that everybody has a voice in the decision-making process, and then also the dwindling effect of members who don't necessarily stay active. So I think just thinking about building a coalition is how can we, ensure the livelihood the coalition to kind of continue on. So well, we obviously have, the shared goal for clean air, but, right now that's a big task. What are other things that individuals could kind of tackle on as well?
That's actually a really good point, Albert. And I think a coalition for clean air is a wonderful, broad objective. But to be effective and not be dwindling, it may be a better approach to come to something more specific. For example, we want to make sure that, Baltimore Washington International Airport, that they stop flying over these neighborhoods, for example, right, and dumping gasoline, things like that. So because coalitions are temporary alliances for a common goal, it is, while this can be part of a broader coalition, it may make more sense to break a piece off of the coalition and focus on specific goals, because it is a temporary. And if you have a specific objective that you're working towards, for example, a piece of legislation, etc., then that coalition dissolves after you have achieved that. Clean air is a very, very broad aspect. So while it is obviously something we need, it may be too broad for a coalition approach. Clean air could be just an organization like the American Lung Association that constantly follows, works on clean air, while a coalition would be more of a specific project or a specific thing that you want to impact. And you create as broad and strong a coalition as possible to move on that. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And did we have anything else on the coalitions? Did we get to steps 3 and 4? Like, what did we have here? Decision-making processes? And yeah, that was it then. I think that is it for the question. Does group 1 or group 2 have any questions regarding what we just did and potential problems that were there? I mean, this was all kind of rushed and not all too clear what the coalition goals was in that sense. But is there anything specific that questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
hello, Sonia. I am from group 1.
Okay,
We
Mariah.
discussed the importance of having best practices and not to start from 0 point. In order, to tackle the time frames and to be in the moment of the action for the coalition. Also, it's important to update the community with the policies that's being changed in order for the community concerned to be aware and to be making decisions with whatever happening of changes.
To be within the
It's not about the vocabulary only,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to work within.
Yeah.
Correct. Go ahead. You have to work within the policies and the socioeconomic climate you have.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you have to adapt, which is difficult right now because things are changing so quickly.
Yeah, that's why, because it's difficult now. We
Yes,
need
I
to
completely
tackle
agree.
it and to handle the difficulties.
Right. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam. We have used up Sonia's time today. I want to thank Sonia so very much. Again, if you have any questions that maybe you didn't ask of Sonia, please put them in the Q&A box, and I'll be sure to get those to Sonia. Someone has asked about the slides. We will definitely share the slides after the last day of the workshop, so they'll be sent out along with the rest of the follow-up information for tomorrow. Before we take a short break, I do want to do a quick poll. So we talked a lot about coalition building today. Sonia offered us that great activity. We're going to have the instructions on how to do that in the slides. But I wanted to ask folks, would you be interested in participating in sort of like a citizen journalism institute? So think about coming together for a few days to understand the ins and outs and really the how-tos, and to get some practice into op-ed writing, letters to the editors, and just sort of the how-tos surrounding those things, and also video journalism. So I'm going to put the poll up and ask you to take 20 seconds to respond yes or no, and then I'll usher us into a short break before we have our next presenter. So you should see the poll on your screen right now. Yeah, there are 30 of us in here. So yeah, so please take the next 15 seconds to respond to our poll here. All right, thank you. So let's see, we have 100% participation and sharing. 18% of us said, okay, maybe next time. So we'll definitely grab you for next time. And then some of us that are interested, please look out for more details about that. give us some time to sort of help craft what that workshop will look like for you. And having said that, again, I'm going to say thank you so much to Sonia, and get Sonia, give you the opportunity. If you have any last words, please take 30 seconds to 60 seconds to share any last words you may have.
Well, first of all, it's been an honor, and thank you so much for having me. Feel free to reach out to me. I have my email address in here if you have any specific questions. Climate Communications Coalition is here to help everyone to try to get the communications out on climate and to inform, educate the public. And I want to thank you all for being here and all the work that you do on a daily basis. I know you're all activists and you're all fighting, and we all have to stick together. It is a chaos, so take care of yourselves. Be safe. Keep safe in your communications as well. And yeah, if I can help you with anything, let me know. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sonia. Last final reminder, any questions for Sonia, please put them in the Q&A box. I'll be sure to get them to her. Right now, we are going to take a very short break. We're going to come back at 12:05 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. So everybody, please set your timers and come back in about 5 minutes, and then we'll get started with our next presenter. All right, so welcome back. We're going to go ahead and get started with our next presenter. Her name is Jessica Berger. And Jessica gives me honor today. Jessica is my colleague. She's the Director of Communications for CEEJH Inc. And Jessica is dedicated to engagement, environmental justice, and community health. Before CEEJH, Jessica coordinated projects for the Energy Justice Law and Policy Center and researched with the Energy Equity Project. She earned her master's in environmental justice from the University of Michigan in 2022, where she was a Tishman Center Catalyst Fellow. She focused her capstone on the impact of the Line 5 pipeline on Anishinaabe lifeways. And Jessica is based in Washington, D.C. She has a lovely dog that I happened to see a picture of yesterday. And Jessica she enjoys gardening, yoga. But one of the things I'm so impressed with Jess about, other than her brilliant mind, she is a triathlete, y'all. So don't mess with Jess.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. I wasn't expecting such a lovely intro.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead, Jess. Sorry.
No worries. No, thank you so much for that. I loved that intro. Thank you. Should I go ahead and share my screen?
Oh, yep, absolutely. Let me stop sharing.
Awesome. And I see somebody in the chat asking how many hours is this meeting?
Oh, well, while you're sharing, so I don't know who asked this question. Maybe you're not one of our fellows. Oh, Yodam, hi. So yes, Yodam is a guest of ours. Yodam is from Malawi. Yodam, so today's meeting is about 4.5 hours, and then tomorrow's workshop is also 4.5 hours. Um, so feel free to take breaks as you need them. Take the agency that you need. If you need to pop off, be sure to and come back, you're welcome to do that as well.
Awesome. I just wanted to make sure that got answered before we dove in. So yes, thank you again for that wonderful intro, Nikki, and thank you, Sonia, if you're still on, for an amazing presentation. I learned a lot while listening from that. So Sonia talked a lot about climate communication strategies, frameworks, best practices, and research. And so now I want to bring that all down to the ground level and talk about what that really looks like daily here at CEEJH. So where we work every day to connect scientific research with the voices and experiences of frontline communities. So For the next 45 minutes or so, I'll walk you through what that looks like at CEEJH, the strategies we use, and then we're going to do a fun activity that we can carry on into tomorrow's session. And I'll be checking the chat periodically. So Nikki already introduced me, but I will just run through a few things. Yeah, I'm currently the Director of Communications here at CEEJH for the past year since CEEJH started as a nonprofit. And background predominantly in energy justice. My pathway is a little unconventional into the environmental justice field. Started working in micromobility at a micromobility startup called Super Pedestrian when they were making a bike wheel called the Copenhagen wheel. Then I went over to community solar before that kind of launching me into this desire to go back to grad school to really focus on environmental justice. And then from there, dedicating myself to working with grassroots organizations such as the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition, the Anishinaabe Caucus, and the Forestry and Fire Recruitment Program, Energy Equity Project, and then the Energy Justice Law and Policy Center, all the way here to CEEJH. So my journey to climate communications has been somewhat unconventional as well. I did not think this was going to be my niche, and I want to share a little bit about my journey because it might be your journey as well. And I fundamentally believe that communications is crucial to all roles we end up in. And so I think it's extremely important that we're talking about communications today. So throughout all my different roles, I found myself drawn to the work of translating complex climate issues into clear, engaging messaging. And so it really began, I mentioned that I worked in community solar. And so from community solar, I was writing blog posts and explaining to folks how to read their electric bills, which are an important touch point between utilities and users, and can really, if understood correctly, that data can help in aid in making decisions and later policy advocacy when you understand what you are being charged for on your utility bill. As I mentioned, I went to grad school to pursue environmental justice and specifically focusing on energy justice. And one of the most transformative things that I was able to do was my capstone project working with the Anishinaabe Caucus, where we ultimately produced a documentary. So that's what is down here at the bottom right, if you can see my cursor. So I worked with Andrea Pierce, the president of the Anishinaabe Caucus, which is the first Indigenous caucus in the Michigan Democratic Party, so that Anishinaabe voices are heard and have a seat at the table within that organizing in the Democratic Party. To make a documentary about the issue of the Line 5 pipeline, which Nikki had mentioned earlier, which threatens the Great Lakes and 20% of the world's of fresh water. So making that documentary and learning what goes into picking each of your interviews, your texts, everything like that, really helped me learn a lot on communications. And then also a kind of more unique introduction to really getting into communications was in my energy justice class. We had a meme competition to how do we convey environmental or energy justice through memes. And that honestly got me hooked into trying to do more communications and social media. And I ended up from that getting an internship with Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition, where I really got to dive into making more accessible communications, predominantly on social media. Okay, so I wanted to share that just as a little bit of an unconventional journey into communications. I did not think this was going to be my niche, and maybe you can also take inspiration from that to find your own pathway, and it might be into communications as well. All right. So I mentioned that CEEJH is as you know, is a new nonprofit. So we had to build from the ground up and how the organization will sound, look, and show up in the world. And so that meant establishing the basics such as creating a clear mission statement, designing our visual identity, our logo, and setting up the platforms where we will connect with people. So I bring this up because in communications, everything is communication. So the word you choose for mission, vision, and value statements are the core communication tools for your the identity of CEEJH and guide all of our organization's communications, everything from grant proposals, our website, press releases, to social media posts. So I wanted to spend some time with our mission statement. So, and talk about some intentionality in our words there. So CEEJH's mission is to empower fence-line, frontline, and underserved communities to resist ongoing environmental, climate, energy, and health injustices, so everyone can thrive in just, equitable, and sustainable futures. So you have probably already heard Dr. Wilson mention the word empower many times. So empower is an intentional play on the word empower to describe helping communities connect to and utilize the power that they already have individually and collectively. So you'll see that throughout CEEJH marketing. We don't use the word empower, empower, because the communities already have the power within, and we are just connecting communities to their power. You'll notice the word so that everyone can thrive. So not just surviving, we deliberately chose the word thriving. And then futures. So futures recognizes a plurality of futures where each future is shaped by place-based solutions, vision, thoughts, and communities. We don't want to say there's one future, but there's a possibility of different futures that are decentralized and place-based. So just recognizing that multiple futures and not just one centralized dictated future. So again, a lot of intentionality in word choice. So that leads us over to our vision statement. So we envision just, equitable, and sustainable futures where all communities thrive in harmony with the land and each other. In these futures, we are liberated from systems of oppression, fossil fuels, and the extractive economy, and environmental, climate, energy, and health injustices are eradicated. To achieve these futures, fence-line, frontline, and underserved communities lead the fight. We pursue this vision by empowering communities with the resources, knowledge, and tools to shape their own path with every action, policy, and initiative rooted in the community's unique culture, knowledge, systems, and values. So again, when we think of our communications into our vision, being very deliberate with our choices of words and what we mention. So when we say we are liberated from systems of oppression, fossil fuels, and the extractive economy, and environmental, climate, and energy health injustices are eradicated, we were very deliberate in saying, listing extractive systems, because you can be liberated from fossil fuels, but, as those who have attended my talk on energy justice, renewable energy can also replicate the same harms if they are still done within the extractive economy. So that's why we talk about moving away from the extractive economy and different other systems of oppression. And then we say are eradicated. So we don't just say reduce harm, we want to completely remove these injustices. And then again, empowering. So the people most affected are not passive recipients, they are leaders in creative solutions. So, and then finally at the end, where each initiative is rooted in the community's unique vision, culture, knowledge systems, and values. We again emphasize there's no one-size-fits-all solution imposed from the outside. So we're honoring and integrating communities' own tradition, wisdoms, knowledge systems, values, and goals to create their own futures, as that emphasis again on the word futures. Any questions or comments right now about mission and vision? I'm clicking the chat. Oh, it's just introductions, okay. But any questions there, feel free to populate them in the chat and I'll keep checking.
Yeah, Jess, I'll be sure to check the chat for you. I see a lot of networking and everything happening in our chat, so I'm going to just ask people to put the questions in the Q&A box so they don't get lost in the in the shuffle. But we definitely encourage everybody to keep networking and sharing resources that you want to share in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. And so again, briefly just showing our values as well. So again, values can act as a compass for communications, ensuring that messages reflect who CEEJH really is and what we stand for. So again, choosing our values with care, saying community first, co-development, accountability, care, liberation, and joy. So from our mission, vision, values, we can then develop the tone for our communications with CEEJH. So tone is important in communications because it shapes how your message is received and interpreted. And it's essential that your tone is reflected throughout all of your materials. So keeping in mind what we just said for mission, vision, and values of CEEJH, we can then say that the tone of CEEJH's communications should then be community-centered, empowering, inclusive, hopeful, knowledgeable, accessible, direct but not alarmist, actionable, and authentic. So keeping in mind in all of our communications, we want communications that is easily understood using accessible language. We want to reduce jargon and break down complex topics. We want to address the gravity of issues while avoiding overwhelming people with negative messaging. We can balance truth with a positive vision for the future and actionable steps for how people can contribute to change. And then when we say community-centered, we want to always, whenever possible, elevate quotes and stories from frontline community members and our partners to center their lived experiences and solutions along the way. So just different things that all go into when we think about, that you can think about when you're going in starting your own organization or a coalition, as Sonia had you in the earlier activity. So Nikki, I would love if you could pull up the video. I want to share with everybody, this is not a video by CEEJH, but I think it does a really good job of showing the difference in tone and when it comes to climate communications, of it having all of these, having it be community-centered, hopeful, knowledgeable, direct but not alarmist, actionable, and authentic and inclusive. So Nikki, if you're able to pull up this video is by the previous organization I worked with, the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition.
All right. Yep, give me 1 second. Oh, could you stop sharing, Jess, and I can share?
Yep.
Hopefully everybody can see my screen, and I'll start the video.
Every time I come back to Rogers City, the boonies, to pick apples, I stop with my granddaughter Kiana to admire the beauty of the valley. In part because I want to make sure that this wonderful land is still intact. And because Kiana loves to hear me carry on about the old days, our great story. Which story? She especially likes the story about how me and some friends came together to confront some of the worst enemies of our time. Folks knew that these monsters were there around, just gaslighting us into believing that they were what our communities needed to be beautiful, thriving, and safe, lying in wait for us. Because they were so conniving, many people acted selfishly, and that was by design to keep us distracted and divided, fighting among ourselves. We didn't act with the urgency that was required, even though we had plenty of warnings that it wanted to seize something that was ours. Until one day we saw it coming, destroying everything in its path, taking away our freedom, our right to live in peace, stealing our right to fresh air. Robbing us of our right to the water our ancestors considered sacred, and our responsibility to care for it as it cared for us for centuries. They were stealing the privilege to work our own land where we weren't given the chance to do it. Oh, our destiny seemed irreversible. All our communities from all across Michigan came together for what I call a justice jambalaya. My grandmother always told me that you have to listen when Mother Earth speaks because she's wise and she'll always know what to do. But it can't fight alone. She needs all of us to help. And for all of us to be completely certain that we can work as a Weedinal Kingdawag. Mano a mano to change the world, our world, once and for all. With faith in the strength of nature, each other, and everything that surrounds it. Regardless of how powerless we sometimes feel or how big a challenge it is, with the help of Mother Nature and our love for one another, we overcame it.
Sorry about that.
Our victory over that monster was marvelous. But there's still so much ahead of us to do. And rebuilding will be more difficult because it's a job we have to reclaim our democracy at every day. It took many years of insistence before our communities were finally involved in the decision-making. With a lot of hard work, we managed to get laws passed for the ethical, equitable, and responsible use of the land and its resources. Water became a universal right, free from extraction and dumping, because you know water is life. And at the end of every battle, we all deserve a good reason to celebrate.
Thank you, Nikki. Okay. So I shared that example because I think it does a really good job of communicating all that we just talked about with the different tones of feeling hopeful, knowledgeable, inspirational, direct, but not alarmist. before we continue, I was just wondering if anybody had reactions to the video. You can write them in the chat. And again, this was made during my time at Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition, and is not an example by CEEJH, but something that I think does a really good example of when you take into consideration your organization's mission, vision, and tone really well into making a piece of visual material that can really communicate well. Yep, I love the narrator's tone. Somehow felt she made it feel personal to the community. Exactly. There wasn't a lot of jargon, and they used monster imagery to really convey so many things at once. Capitalism, fossil fuel interest, everything was just depicted as a large monster, and really incorporated a lot of really big ideas into one. Yeah, the video is more educative. Love the art direction. Yeah, the visuals are great. Yeah, and then the flash forward to 2072, exactly, Albert, showing this hopeful image of like, what will it look like when we overcome, when we have the awakening and everyone works together. And we have this beautiful image of them celebrating together at the Seven Sisters Festival. Very powerful, and love that they use keywords in different languages to create unity among cultures. Absolutely. Yep, you saw they were using different words in Anishinaabe, Spanish. There may have been others. I just remember those two. Okay. I'll move us forward. So again, I talked about, I wanted to really, okay, one more commentary. Artistry has powerful and profound impact on the message, absolutely. So I wanted to also talk about, I talked about, Sonia talked a lot about like the frameworks and research behind communications. I wanted to give an idea of what it looks like on the daily here at CEEJH. So everything that goes into the communications role when you're working in a small nonprofit in environmental justice, that looks like on the daily, making press releases and blog posts, all of the email communications, community one-pagers, content for the website, especially as CEEJH is a new nonprofit, making everything from scratch. Somebody asked in the Q&A who was involved in the mission and vision and value statements, and that was our core team. So just our core team of, I think we were only 5-6 people at the time. And then all of our visual abstracts for grant applications, marketing materials for the symposium that you all will get to be listening on. When we think of like, quote unquote, I know this is a very like corporate term of like brand assets. When we think of like, what do we need when we're tabling at community outreach events, or when we go into the community, do we need tablecloths, like, all of those kind of quote unquote brand assets. And then making toolkits. So Sonia also talked about being in coalition. So Dr. Wilson, who founded CEEJH, also was a co-founder of the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition, and we are active members of MAGIC. So when we are working within that coalition to make different toolkits, so we can do that kind of amplification process that Sonia had mentioned earlier. So one thing that MAGIC had worked on was a CEEJH Act addressing cumulative impacts in Maryland. And how do we make sure that our whole coalition is doing the same amplification to help get this CEEJH Act passed, and our different messaging is consistent. So just quickly flip through some examples. So it will load in a second. Brochure that maybe have gotten some of you to come attend. This program, so the Climate Justice Fellows, oh, it did not, looking a little funky with the embedding feature. Like I said, different branding for the symposium, or, we had a town hall with multiple other organizations. And then those community one-pagers. This is the community one-pager that I just produced for our work in Memphis, Tennessee. So some of you might be aware from Vivek's presentation. I didn't get to attend it, so I'm not sure how much he talked about it, but that we are working with the community to monitor air quality, particularly in South Memphis around the XAI data center, or the artificial intelligence data center that's notorious there, that was established by Elon Musk, and trying to do our own air quality evaluation because we did not believe that the cities was accurately accounted for different variables. So we're working with community. So that looks like trying to make a one-pager that really tries to make some of this material more accessible to community members as we try to convince them to be hosts for our air quality monitoring units. So we have our 2 air quality sensors, and we're trying to find community partners who will host these sensors on their properties. So it looks like, how do you build trust? How do you come off as approachable but knowledgeable? And so just another example. I mentioned what communications can also look like is making different visual abstracts for grant applications. And like I said, the toolkits for that, the CEEJH Act. So that's just what a little bit of the day-to-day can look like, and so much more. So for those of you who will be working with me as fellows for communications, we can continue to brainstorm out what more else we can do, because the biggest limiting factor in is always just, where to direct our time and energy to as a limited staff. But there's so much we want to be doing and keep doing. So my activity for all of you is we want to put all of this into action. And Nikki, can I have a time check on how much time we have for the activity?
Give me 1 second to double check. It is. Oh, we have plenty of time, Jess. You can do 10 minutes for, 10 minutes for the activity.
Okay, awesome. Because this activity will also be able to continue to work on and follow up tomorrow. But I wanted to do a similar activity that got me most excited into climate communications and thinking about it. So there's a few options. I'm going to break you up into groups, and then you can pick from these 3 options. Option 1, creating a short script for a social media video defining an environmental justice term. And I'm going to have Nikki show 2 examples that I made. And then option 2, create a meme or image with text that explains your term in a relatable way. Or option 3, drafting an outline for a zine. So getting an opportunity to really be creative. So I'll jump back and forth between slides, but some examples of different memes. So as you're considering how to distilling these really complex concepts again into memes, memes can be very, very effective. So I like this one. This is a more political cartoon than a meme, but when we think of hydrogen as a fall solution, so some of you may be familiar with hydrogen as a proposed energy source, and often being called as like a cleaner energy source or a clean energy source. So this shows these hydrogen fuel cell cars are entirely pollution free, but shows what goes into manufacturing hydrogen for the cars to be used. Some of these other memes on the left, if you attended my energy justice talk, then you're familiar more with a lot of them focused again on the notorious utility DTE in Michigan. But when the Little Miss memes were popular, or helping convey that DTE is an investor-owned utility, which is equivalent to a monopoly, using a monopoly board, and so on. And then I imagine many of you are familiar with zines, but option 3 was the drafting an outline for a zine. So obviously you don't have to dive into all of this, but this is a great example of a zine. So it's the House on Fire, Housing and Climate Crisis. House on Fire, the Housing and Climate Crisis, Housing and Climate Resilience zine. So it asks how climate change is affecting the lives of people living unhoused in the United States. And it's a awesome zine, which is a 20-page illustrated zine drawing on interviews with 50 plus members of the unhoused community, and talks about what a movement to decriminalize houselessness can look like and what that looks like in a changing environment. So you can have an outline for a zine, which I think people are familiar with the term zine, but if you're not, it is, there's no like standard definition, but it's a self-published, handmade, or small press booklet that's can be hand drawn like that, or there's some digital zines, and then they can share ideas, experiences, or perspectives, and then they're often of historically marginalized or unrepresented subcultures or social movements. Or the script for the video. So Nikki, could you pull up, or can show both of the videos, first the Instagram one and then the TikTok one?
Okay, yeah. So while I'm doing that, if you don't mind, could you please put those 3 options in the chat so that people can have access to them when we go into the breakout rooms?
Yeah.
Give me a second to share the Instagram video.
The first one is a one that I made. I animated and had my colleague do the voiceover for MEJC. And it's, again, one of those like defining an environmental justice term. So that's why breaking down these terms can be helpful.
What is an investor-owned utility? Investor-owned utilities, or IOUs, are for-profit businesses that provide services like electricity or gas. IOUs are owned by shareholders. This means their main goal is to serve profit-driven investors. The Michigan Public Service Commission is responsible for regulating IOUs. They are supposed to serve the public by ensuring safe, reliable, and accessible energy. Thanks to their monopoly status, communities do not have alternative options for energy providers. The vast majority of Michiganders have an IOU for their energy provider. The largest IOU is DTE. Follow for more lessons on energy justice.
Okay, thank you, Nikki. And then if you could show the TikTok example, a slightly different version that I worked with for the Energy Justice Alliance, and one of our awesome members, Marissa, helped film this one. And this one,
Don't
we were starting
know
a.
if I can play the TikTok one, but we're going to try it.
Okay, awesome.
I think
this one really ended up resonating, and we got 37,000 people, 37,000 views on this video.
Let's see.
A sacrifice zone is a zone where people of color who are in low-income communities have to live near pollution from factories and dirty energy. This happens when people are considered disposable. Residents in these zones face high rates of respiratory issues, cancers, and other harms from these environmental burdens. We can end sacrifice zones by speaking up against pollution and demanding clean energy.
So you're just doing short videos to define different terms. And I think that a lot of the different terms we use in environmental justice are really powerful, like sacrifice zone. The definition of sacrifice zone conveys a lot. So breaking down these terms and defining them, as well as like investor-owned utility and all of these different things. So when we break out into breakout groups, depending on what speaks to you as a group, and we will have more time to work on this activity tomorrow as well, you can work on writing a script for defining an environmental justice term, and I wrote some ideas of terms below, or creating a meme, or drafting an outline for a zine.
Right, but he came out and said that's what
All
he's gonna
right.
do.
Thank you, Jess. So, everybody, we're going to take 10 minutes to complete this activity, and the breakout rooms are going to open right now.
And we'll have more time tomorrow.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope your breakout rooms, you were productive in your breakout rooms. So we are wrapping up and nearing the end of Jess's portion of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jess for us to wrap up before we take a 5-minute break and then welcome our last presenter for today.
Okay, hi everybody. I hope that you got your brains working as you got to think in your breakout groups for a moment of creativity and think about how you can convey different communications about environmental justice creatively. I realized I forgot to, I was in the meme group and I realized I failed to send a really helpful tool for memes. So you can go to, if you Google meme generator and click on that like first link, that site has all of your most popular memes that you can put text on that just makes it easier to brainstorm different memes when you're thinking about it. But I wanted to invite any groups, if you want to share out some of your different ideas or what you were thinking about, good ideas for a video script, a meme, or a zine. Of course, I didn't expect anybody to actually finish any of these activities, just start brainstorming about what they might be excited to do.
I'll start. So hi everyone, it's Sherelle. And we wanted to do a script and we were talking about cumulative impacts. There was a lot of dialogue about what language, what definitions, but I think we ended up landing on a definition that cumulative impacts are the total effects of environmental stressors a community is exposed to, and not just one source. So that just had our brains thinking, and then the idea of maybe talking about health in relation to smoking. You may have one cigarette, smoking one cigarette might not harm you right away, but doing it over years' time will definitely add up, and relating that to how that happens in communities as well. And then defining cumulative impacts, and then saying how that relates to air and water and noise, even social and economic pressures. All of those things piling up over time will hit some neighborhoods harder than others. And so when we think and talk about environmental justice, we have to ensure that we're looking at the full picture, because no one lives just next to one problem, and solutions have to fix the whole load, not just one piece. So that's just where we were with that.
I love that. That's a really good one, because cumulative impacts is a really hard term to define and that we use. And yeah, that just coming off of being, working at CEEJH on the CEEJH Act and all with the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition, helping people understand cumulative impacts. I love that idea and how you defined it. Great job, team. And sounds like a very creative video with the analogy to smoking. Anybody else want to share out? Yes, go team.
All right. Sherelle, what group were you? Were you group 2, the second group, or group 1?
I would be lying if I told you I knew. I know
Okay. No worries. So this is what we'll do. I don't see anyone else jumping to share. So I'm going to give Jess her last words, her final words. We'll be sure to put the resources Jess shared in all of the follow-up communications so that everybody can have that. So I'll give Jess her final words before we take a final break and move on to our next presenter.
Oh man, I did not think of some final words, but I guess thank you everybody for just thinking through this activity. I think that activity is what got me into really being more excited about communications. I told you like it was kind of a meme contest in my energy justice class. And that's how I kind of realized I like this and this is a lot of fun to just creatively tell stories about environmental justice and climate change and all. So I just encourage you to have fun and to just create something because we consume so much content and creating content can be really powerful. And, we have social media and all these different tools right at our fingertips. I have talked to a lot of different climate content creators, micro influencers and all, and they all just started out small, like making YouTube videos and just consistently posting them. And that gained traction in their audiences. And, storytelling is just very powerful and be creative and don't be afraid to just do it.
All right. Thank you so much, Jess. We look forward to seeing you back tomorrow. So it is 1:07. I'm going to give everyone until 1:15. Please come back at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will introduce our next presenter. You guys are in for a really great treat and fun afternoon activity. So please, take whatever break you need and come back to join us. But right now, I will stay on during the break this time. If you guys want to come off mute or come on camera and say hello and do some virtual networking, we're up for that as well. I will say I'm happy to see some of our Climate Justice Fellows alum on the call today. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm happy to see our global fellows from various countries on the call today, and some of my colleagues out in the environmental space. Happy to see you here. We also had some of my colleagues from Sierra Club that were on the call. I'm not sure if you're still here, but just welcome everybody. I see Francis is on here today. Francis, help me out. I can't remember if you are in Nigeria or Ghana. I know you're in Africa. But we have a really global audience today, so happy to see everybody here. Francis maybe have.
Hello.
Hi.
It's good to be here. How are you?
Great. How are you? Oh, this is
Fine,
Yodam.
thank
Hi,
you.
Yodam.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So everybody, Yodam and I met actually. We are both part of an organization we're called Eco America, and Yodam and I are both Eco America climate ambassadors. Great, great organization to be part of. And I met Yodam via Eco America's Climate Ambassador Program, and he was just sharing information about his Green Space Initiative. So I would love for Yodam to tell everybody very shortly. We have a few minutes. Yodam, how can people, I saw that you shared information about Green Space Initiative in the chat. How can people volunteer for Green Space Initiative? I know you're in Malawi, but we have some people that travel to volunteer. So how can individuals volunteer?
Oh, yes, we are trying to set up something to let our friends join us in that course from outside Malawi, because currently we are only accepting volunteers from within the Nkhotakota district because of the nature of our capacity. So when we are good to go, I think we'll let you know. But they can always volunteer with online resources. They can always attend meetings and even support in whatever way they can.
Thank you for sharing that, Yodam.
And sorry, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I shared the presentation. It contains some of the information to the initiative. So whenever you feel free, please visit it. You can see our works there.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be sure to include the link in our resource guide as well when we share all of the presentations. Do any of our Climate Justice Fellow alum want to come off mute? You don't have to, but be glad to have you come off mute, say a few words to our new fellows here. I see Myra and Azania here. I saw uh, Julie here. Lots of folks are here.
Hey, Nikki, hey, everyone. Um, yeah, it was a good experience for me, and you guys will learn a lot.
3 minutes actually before folks come back from break. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started. We had a great morning with Sonia Demiray and Jessica Berger. So now we're going to move into how do we use our stories using in the role of storytelling in environmental justice. So we want to take a look at how we do that. So I put Mariah as our last presenter for today because Mariah's workshop facilitation is going to carry us over into tomorrow. And then tomorrow, we're actually going to begin with Mariah to sort of keep that consistency and flow throughout the information she has to share with us. So as I mentioned, today's the last presenter for today is Mariah. Beyond your definition, Barber. Mariah goes by they, she pronouns, and she's a multidisciplinary storyteller, public health professional, and activist who uses spoken word, audio, and performances to amplify marginalized voices. And as a queer, disabled, Black non-binary artist, Mariah draws from their lived experience and training in anthropology, public health, and international studies to foster healing, justice, to foster healing and justice through intersectional, accessible storytelling. Mariah is the founder of Invisible Strengths, and she facilitates workshops that equip communities, especially youth, with the tools that their truths and shift systems throughout art. And I also wanted to say, it's here on the slide, but I think it's important. That haiku that I read to everyone when we started our workshop this morning, Mariah is the one to help us facilitate through that. Mariah is a national haiku championship champion uh, previously, and hope that you are able to take some wonderful tangible things from Mariah's presentation. So without further ado, excuse me, I'll turn it over to Mariah.
Hello, everyone. Super excited to be here. Give me a moment to just share my screen with everybody. I didn't know the haiku got shared, so you guys have already been primed, didn't even know it. I'm gonna start with my PowerPoint presentation, but you will see through my presentation style, I really like to bring voices into the room to give you some fun tools and activities that you can use to tap into your community with. And so really just wanted to start with like environmental justice statistics bloomed into stories. My background is as a social scientist, and as Nikki spoke about, being a cultural anthropologist. And what I learned from a lot of ethnographies and even working on global policy around environmental justice is that a lot of times people aren't using these big lofty terms like climate reparations or fair share. They're talking about their air, their water, their land. And really to meet people where they are, you often have to utilize stories. So the importance of stories is really that, as far as Native folks across the globe, storytelling has been a really great way to push on wisdom from griots, but also it reminds us of our interconnectedness. And it's really a way to kind of make a connection with someone about why environmental justice or the climate movement would matter to them. Um, and it's a great way that you can utilize when applying for grants. I actually brought just a few examples of global climate storytelling that I'm really proud of and excited about. This is actually a book called Come Together, and this is by an Aboriginal writer and illustrator that I was able to meet, who really turned her story of what's occurred with her people and the land into a children's book, to excite that next layer of the EJ movement, and also just to have a way to bring people in to understanding these huge concepts through, in that example, a children's book. There's other ways of utilizing spoken word and just helping to like facilitate conversations when you're trying to have a community gathering, or just talk to people about a mine coming into the community, talk to people about land loss, talk to people about gender justice, really making it into something fun and interactive. So I'd love to see in the chat if anybody else has used storytelling within their climate movement work. I know a big way is also when you have to write grants. You have to be able to tell that story and let people know why they should be funding or supporting your work. So love to hear from others ways they've used storytelling, or if they have more questions about it. This is just a little bit more about me. I'm really passionate about environmental justice, global health, and also technology, and just how we can embed being storytellers into the work that we're already doing. So this is a bit of like the overview of our day, like really part one and part two. So we'll do part one today, and then we'll get into part two tomorrow. But basically we'll start with some grounding, intention setting. Then we'll go over like our shared agreements. We'll do our opening exercises of what brings you to this work. And then we'll do some group discussions, and we'll have a few times we're going to go into breakouts, which I know from joining a little early, it seems like you guys are familiar with. So we'll do like 6 breakout groups of 5 to share in smaller groups, and sometimes work together collaboratively and then share back out to the larger group. And we'll leave with a few EJ storytelling exercises that not only help us to tap into our stories ourselves, but also are hopefully things that you can take with you. I would definitely be sharing this deck afterwards when you're going into community, to be able to tap into helping to empower the community to tell their own stories and kind of follow their thread of what got them involved in the movement or what they're trying to change and shape in their own communities across the globe. Would love to see in the chat too if folks want to share where they're working from, where they're tuning in from. I know I'm super passionate about work I've done in Latin America, but also in Africa and places like Nigeria, South Africa, and then also places in the US like Louisiana, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. So I'd love to hear in the chat where some folks are tuning in from. And we'll always just keep reflecting back and sharing, and just feel free, like you can always raise your hand, come off of mute and ask your question, or put it into the chat and I'll be checking that periodically. So really some of the objectives that I hope that everyone walks away with is like, how does storytelling shape this work? What are the stories that got us here? And the stories that will then move us forward. And then how can we assist frontline communities in pushing the work forward through narrative building? And I know we talked about some of it sounds like from the previous workshop, some of the digital narrative building, that's definitely a big part of it, whether it's micro influencing. I've even worked with communities in Barbados before and St. Kitts and Nevis that have made like soca songs about like accessing fresh water. You can always turn this narrative into some different types of media to really tap into community and make it go viral, make people excited to be a part of the movement or the work that you're doing. So we want to understand the role of storytelling again, learn some frameworks for compelling for compelling narratives, develop and share some personal and community-based stories, and then like receive some feedback to be able to refine our storytelling skills. Whenever we're talking about communication, there's always that sender and receiver. So if we have like an objective that we want with our storytelling, like my objectives I showed you on my previous slide, I want to make sure my audience is being able to receive and understand what I'm saying. So that's why we'll do a lot of the breakouts and share outs and sometimes ask people what they took away from what we were sharing to make sure our messages are getting across what we're trying to say. And then if anyone's heard of the term griot, my ancestry is with Black Americans here that were brought in the transatlantic slave trade from Africa. And there were a lot of griots in my family growing up, or people who were storytellers that kept the history of our family when sometimes we couldn't rely on statistics or records to do so. So a lot of that involved songs, involved passing down names or different values, sometimes even recipes. And the griot is very important to me, and I see myself as a griot. And this is just a quote that is going to ground what we're talking about today. The griot does not just tell stories, they remember for the earth. In the climate movement, we are not just fighting for the future, we are remembering what it means to live in balance. And as part of storytelling, there's content, there's history, there's sometimes marketing, there's communication, there's of course emotion, there's the ideas you're trying to share, and there's your experience. Sometimes within climate storytelling, we may talk about the griot work I mentioned. I love this beautiful image of a griot in West Africa telling stories of the sky. We also have archival work that's shown in the picture directly across. Archival work for me has come up with working with a lot of freedmen settlements across the US, which were settlements that came after slavery ended in the United States. There were a lot of Black towns that popped up, and many of their libraries keep an archive of what was happening in the Black community at that time. They keep an archive of mining, of different power plants and things that came up in the community, but also of just different histories of movement across the country within the Black community. So that archiving of those stories is really important too. And sometimes you'll see partnerships with museums or libraries or just elders in the community that have kept archives through time. And then storytelling, which of course we're going to focus on today. So I want to get out of here just for a moment and just check the chat. So I know some people may have shared where they're coming from. Okay. Oh, yes. I love that folks shared a little bit about user experience design projects. Thank you so much for sharing that, Stephanie. That's definitely something I also work within. When you're thinking about your user experience, what story that's telling. And that can be when anyone clicks on their phone and they go to an application and the first page that they see as they scroll through, when we're going to your organization or your movement's website. What kind of story is that telling? Is there a video? Is there a haiku? What story is being told? Sometimes you can utilize things like YouTube or even podcasting to help get that story and that narrative out. Also just wanted to go, okay, I see some folks are based in NOLA. I was just in NOLA for Katrina 20. We had a global climate reparations convening. So I'm really excited to talk a little bit about that, Stacy. And amazing, you're writing grants for your organization. So you might need to use some of the storytelling approaches. And that definitely can set apart sometimes your grants or things you're submitting for, whether it's a fellowship, whatever it might be. Of course, you'll have those statistics, but it's really powerful to have that mixed method or have those stories with it too, to talk about maybe a family or a community being impacted with the wells you want to dig, or with the community movement spaces you're creating to move a power plant or whatever you might be working on. I see Octavia shared about the need for storytelling in her field, and she's excited to develop this skill. And yes, oh, the name of the book, sure, I'm happy to share it again. It's called Come Together, Things Every Aussie Kid Should Know About the First Peoples. And I can make sure I share this afterwards as well. And I will be having this as an example also when we meet again, I think about a week from now, when I'm doing case studies about my work with storytelling in the EJ movement. But I can definitely share that. And Isaiah Fire Brace is the author of this. And then Jalen is actually the illustrator that I was saying was the friend. But I have it here and I'll make sure I share that following our time together. Yes, super excited. I see people are interested in the book. I saw folks were sharing like a news article that's definitely an example of stories as well. And oh, amazing. We have someone based in South Africa. When I was speaking about work there, it was actually in Limpopo, South Africa. So I'm really excited to connect. Yeah, just super thrilled to hear you guys engaging. Thank you for sharing and for giving me grace to kind of get off screen and just see what you guys are talking about in the chat. I'll go back to our grounding. So in the beginning, I just like to do a little bit of breath. We are going to be a little bit vulnerable. We're going to be sharing our stories at the end of the day. So before we get into the first exercise, I know we've been kind of sitting for a while. It's okay if you don't want to come off camera. If you'd like to, you can, but you already see me wiggling around. We're going to just do square breaths. So I'm just doing a square with my hand, but basically we'll breathe in, out, in, out. And we're just gonna do that 2 times, but just wanted to give us a chance to just kind of ground into the space we are, ground into who we are. And we are gonna maybe be talking about some things that may involve trauma, that may involve hopes, some hesitations, some pain in our poems and in our different exercises. But it's in an effort for us to see a brighter future and a better world, and for some of the goals that you all mentioned. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And I also am just gonna light a bit of sage here for us. This is also just to honor the land and the space that I'm sitting on and just open up the space for us to have some vulnerability. Um, I Whenever I was doing work in Latin America, I did a lot of work in Peru and Huaraz, which is a highland community, um, and worked with a curandero there and with women who were subsistence farming and hoping to share their stories about how the receding glaciers are impacting them, and their rights as women, their responsibilities as women, sometimes violence inflicted on them as women. And a big part of that would be like opening up the space with sharing food or burning something. So that's something that I've kept and really like to do. So we'll get started here. And again, we're just going to do some breathing out, and then we're going to get into our first exercise with just a few folks. So for now, we'll do the square breaths. So first, we're going to start with breathing in. You can keep your eyes open. You can close your eyes. It's really your preference. This is just your time to set your intention and your grounding for what you want to get out of the exercise we'll be doing today. So we're breathing in, then out. In, then out. In, then out. In, then out. In once more. Ah, Ashe, amen, all of them. Whatever greeting makes sense, feel free to share it in the chat or come off mute. But I really try to start any work I'm doing with this kind of space. This maybe can be your own version that you're using in community, but remember, we're talking about sometimes some tough topics. So whether it's breaking bread, literally, we know our people love to eat, and that's one way we commune together. And we share these stories, but it also can be just a slight stretch, a slight breath. This is something we definitely can do to just open up a space. So we're going to be present. We're going to listen deeply. We're going to definitely step outside of our comfort zones. I always step outside of mine, even with doing this for so many years. I'm sure you guys are going to inspire something new out of me. We're going to speak from our own experience, lived, personal, professional, and using I statements. We're going to recognize that this all sits on forms of oppression like white supremacy. And we're going to focus on really tools and solutions through art, and through our storytelling. And we're going to expect some discomfort, and some things may not be fully closed, especially because this is part one, but we will get to put a nice bow on it by part two. And what's said here stays here unless we ask other people if that's okay to share their story. And we just embrace the journey. And I'd love if anyone wants to add in the chat anything else that they feel like needs to be added to this list. Anything else that they might feel needs to be added to this list. And I'm just going to the chat so I can see what you all, the great things you all are saying right now. I see some new things in the chat. Let me check it out. Oh, I love Yo Tom saying they feel grounded. Will recording be stopped when the individuals share? Thank you for asking this, Albert. This may be a question we can also ask Nikki about, but I know we'll be going into the breakout sessions and then coming back together. Is that possible, Nikki, for us to pause some elements? If that is what people feel
Yeah,
comfortable when we do
absolutely.
the sharing?
Absolutely. Breakout rooms should not, like the recording should not be on in breakout rooms. So if it is on when you get in there, please let me know. But I think breakouts recording should be disabled.
Okay, thank you so much, Nikki. I appreciate it. And then also, yep, and Nikki shared in the chat, please feel free to put any questions in the Q&A box. So I'll definitely try to be monitoring that. And if you need to ping me at all, Nikki, with folks asking throughout, I'm really happy to answer throughout. We don't have to wait to the end. I also saw where Octavia added in that we could use yes and statements. So if you, in case this is your first time hearing about it, if someone says something that maybe you don't agree with, you can say, yes, that's true. And here's my thoughts on that topic. So that you're not invalidating someone else, but you're also adding what your thoughts are. And then I statements, yes, that was listed there. And I'm glad to reiterate it again. Just I have an experience dealing with living in a food desert or a place where there are not grocery stores. I feel that there are a lot of Black communities that there is a lot of exposure to cancerous chemicals in, and that is something that impacted my family. You see how I'm just using those I statements. Just wanted to give more of an example. Yeah, I love Alma saying that there's definitely some things that we can bring. You all are experts at what you do, and maybe something that we need. So just talking about needs and offerings. I love that. And I think that's something we can add throughout. So I want to get into our first activity. And this one actually is going to be new to Nikki as well. This is something that I learned at the Global Climate Reparations Convening that was in, shout out to NOLA in Louisiana. And if you have not heard that, it was 20 years since Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana, and there was a lot of different work that was happening there about 2 weeks ago. Yes, so the first exercise that we're going to do is called My People. So I'm going to ask just that 3 people volunteer, to try it out, but I'm going to first show you how it goes. So I have a timer right here on my phone for 30 seconds. You will basically just be orating for 30 seconds. The reason we're practicing this is not only is it going to open us up to get ready for the longer exercise in our breakouts, but also if you've ever had to go to a city council meeting, for example, in DC, we'll have city ward council meetings because the city is broken up into different wards. And we've been trying to take lead piping out of the school system. Sometimes they have an option for public comments where the community can speak and share their comments about why this issue is important to them. So during my public comments, I really talked about how, there's no safe threshold for lead exposure to youth. And when they're drinking water in the schools, when they're spending all this time in school, they're also exposing themselves to things that can cause disability and can cause a lot of health issues. And so we need to make these buildings safe for that reason. That's just an example of a real life way we're going to use this, but I'll basically ask for 3 people to come off mute and speak for 30 seconds, and we're going to do it a little bit more fun. So let me give you the example first. If you want to pull out your phone and time me too, or on your computer, we're just going to keep repeating my people and just talking about what our people care about for this exercise. And we'll just have 3 people to do this one. My people want a safe space to be able to swim in the water. My people want there to be more lead in the pencils in schools than in the water system. My people care about liberation. My people are from the South. Globally and nationally, my people think everyone deserves the right to breathe clean air. And the timer just went off for me. I don't know if you guys can hear it. And so I'm going to pause that now. And I just wanted to get from 2, 3 other people, if they would just come off mute, and we're going to do this exercise. I see, Nicole, you came on camera. Are you saying that you want to go first, Nikki?
Oh,
Or were you just coming
well,
off camera to
if
observe?
we don't have any other volunteers, I will go, but I just wanted to tell people this is one of the areas where I will pause the recording so people can feel free to just be completely vulnerable and open.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I voluntold you.
No, that's okay. We're all here to learn together. And like you said, this exercise is new to me as well. So I would love for 3 of our fellows to volunteer. But if we can't get 3, I'm happy to be the other volunteer. Can we get a show of hands if anybody else would love to volunteer? All right.
Okay, I
Thank you
think I
very
just
much, Octavia. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Octavia. And whenever you get a chance to come off of mute, I'll start the timer for you. And again, you're just repeating my people and then just talking about things that you're advocating for or things that come to mind for you. And now we're also going to talk about who we are. And when we talk about who we are, we talk about where we're from a lot of times, not just on the map, but just where our people are from, what brings us to this work. So we'll all be in groups working together to create a short poem, and we'll have 12 minutes to do so. I want to give an example of what this I am poem looks like. And Nikki actually got to do this with our fellows last time I met with the fellows in person. So y'all have to exchange what different poems y'all came up with, but I'll read mine first. I am from watermelon women, from truck beds, from sharecroppers, from cornfields, from civil rights movements. I'm from barefoot in the garden, from the dirty South, from family reunions, Easter speeches, and organizing in Black churches. I'm from hiking in the woods, fishing in the creek, riding horses down by the road, from grills and hubcaps and cities round the corner from the country. From Natalie, from Mary, from my ancestor Mariah. I'm from burning trash, chopping trees down, crickets chirping, lightning bugs, moon better than the city lights, grind time, Carolina blues, the color and the country. I'm from what happens in this house stays in this house. From some people do, some people never do, some people always do. How do you do? We're doing things to change the world from do as I say, not as I do. I'm from Ashe, amen, and yes. from y'all, Europe, and Georgia, from slave cotton, from integration, from global citizen. I'm from planet Earth. I'm from herbalism, co-ops, and global health. I'm from policy and climate storytelling. I'm from cancers, healing, and small town gay bars. I'm from open mics, direct actions, and disability. I'm from a better future. All right, y'all can snap for it. I can't feel y'all energy, but I hope that y'all were feeling it. Okay, thank you, Alma, for the claps. We're all going to be doing I am from poems when we go to our breakouts. So I'll be popping between and we'll have 6 different groups of 5. Basically, how this will work is everyone writes a few lines of like where they're from, and then we put it together as a large poem that y'all will share together. So you can, when you share out, you can either have one reader that will read out the full poem that you can create, or you can take turns reading it off. I just want to say before we go into the breakouts, when we're talking about where we're from, you can think about where you're from. You can talk about things that are not from where you're from. So for example, I've heard people say, I'm not from performative activism. I'm not from big polluters. You can talk about the literal longitude and latitude of where you're from. You can talk about phrases that are said where you're from. Jalagal, for example, is like welcome in Aboriginal culture. So you could say, I'm from Jalagal. You could say, I'm from y'all because I'm from the South United States. You can say, I'm from Ola. You can say different things that you're from. You can also talk about just like thinking about what activated you into this movement, why you're here today, why you're a fellow. And it can also just be about foods that you eat, sounds that you hear in your culture. So is everybody clear on what we're doing? If you could just do a thumbs up if you understand the I'm from exercise we're about to get into together. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. Perfect, perfect. Thank you guys for engaging. And now Nikki's going to put us into our breakout groups. And like I said, we'll have 10 to 12 minutes, and then we'll have a few groups just be able to share out with the larger group. And we'll ask in the chat what people took away from what they said. Because remember, we want to hear how our stories are landing. So while we're getting the breakout groups prepared, if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I will be bopping around to the virtual groups to just see if there are any questions. I'm just going here just to see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mariah.
Sure.
So just a point, like an update, y'all. We had a few folks drop from the call.
Oh,
So we
gotcha.
are going, no worries. So we are going in breakout rooms, but we're going to have 5 breakout rooms of mostly 4, and
Okay,
2
perfect.
breakout rooms will have 5.
Okay.
Yep. And how long do we get for this exercise, Mariah?
I was gonna say 10 minutes, but knowing
Okay.
I'll check in with people and we can go to 12 if people need like 2 more minutes time.
Okay, so I'll set the timer, and breakout groups are opening now, everybody.
Okay. Excited to hear where everyone's from, and let me just check the chat.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else in the chat, so we're good. Everybody
No,
understands.
and Mariah, as you're popping around, just let me know if you find the recording on, let me know, but it should not be on in the breakout rooms.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. I'm glad someone asked that question because I didn't think about, people may be more comfortable.
All right. So everybody, we had our private time in the breakout rooms. Mariah's going to usher us back into this session. I have press recording so we can hear the larger poems from the group. So just know that when you're reading your poems, you don't have to attribute the lines to anyone in particular because we know it was a group and collective effort. And that also helps us maintain the anonymity of who contributed what.
Thank you for that, Nikki. And I'm going around to the different groups. I heard some amazing lines. Y'all are actually meant to be teaching this workshop, but I'm very excited. Definitely want to open it up. I'm going to start it the way that I went through the groups. I did it in reverse. So I was going to ask group 5 to start. So group 5, if that was a part of your group Cinco, if
Hello.
hi, I'm going to turn it over to you
Yes.
all.
Oh, yes, I was in group 5. Thank you. these are the lines that we got. I am from where the border meets the sea. I'm from I'm from a community that goes on while the Berger sprees. I'm from an opponent of destruction, stealing, and hindering harvesting olive trees. I am from I'm from a sharing community and storytellers. So I think that's what we got.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
Love
Yes.
it.
I see the yellow hearts, red hearts. I did want to just open it up if maybe we could have one or two comments from the group about what you heard and maybe a metaphor you want to further unpack or something you heard around their movement work. Just something you want to ask a bit more because this is really an opener exercise to start a further conversation.
If I could, oh, I think someone.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, did I hear correctly that there was they were talking about olive trees, which I think is also a really beautiful metaphor because an olive branch is like extending like a piece from one community to another.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jessica. Loved it.
Yes. Want to go back to group one. Was that what you all intended when you were mentioning the olive tree? Or excuse me, group 5.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Sure. Jessica was kind of mentioning how when she had heard about the olive tree, she thought about an olive branch. And I was wondering if what you all meant when you were speaking about the olive tree and that being a part of where you were from. Anyone from group
Yes,
5 can share.
yes, because this is a fact. Sadly, the destruction and the hindering of harvesting olive trees as a resemblance or as a part of the roots of the natives of that land and to the to the symbol of peace, both the
I love
content
that.
and the context.
Yes. Thank you for providing that context. And again, going back to what our goals are with storytelling, it sounds like the message was received, a piece of what you were saying with your message. And I love the double entendre of you talking about peace.
Yes.
So literally.
And also I am from no double standards and justice for all.
Yes, thank you. All of this goodness going on in the conversation. I see Octavia is cheering it on too. If you hear a line that you really love, feel free to put a heart in the chat or even comment a bit more in the chat. We're going to go on to group 4 now. Group 4.
I can go ahead for group 4, which was we have like a little bit of a longer poem, so brace yourself. I'm just kidding, it's not that long. But our poem is I'm from poverty, I'm from dysfunction, I'm from beauty, I'm from invisible strengths. I'm from the city of brotherly love, the concrete jungle. I'm from hoagies and cheesecake. I'm from the Gullah Geechee corner of the southeast. I'm from what I call Savannah Sweet. I'm from pierogi and empanadas, mixture of languages and culture. I'm from refugees and immigrants traveling to and away from a home unknown. I'm from the Corn Belt, USA. I'm from love, and I'm from the largest port cities, but I can't breathe. And that's our poem.
Ooh, loved it. Loved it. I needed a verbal clap so everybody can hear that.
I was snapping the whole time. I really appreciated the pierogies and empanadas. Of course, the invisible strengths. You're getting a lot of claps and love from your peers from love. from the Corn Belt, from the Gullah Geechee corner. Loved everything that you all shared. Want to just open up the space for at least one comment from another cohort member about something that they had a question about or just spark something for them.
I hope you guys can hear me clearly. I'll just say, given the weight of this work, these exercises, like, I mean, just it just gave life to me because sometimes the weight is so heavy what we deal with when we're dealing with community and the environmental issues. But this is a way to like be the best icebreaker I ever could imagine. Definitely will be using it in my circle. So thank you. It did something for me at this moment. So I really appreciate the exercise.
Thank you. I'm really receiving that and I am appreciating that. And it's definitely just meant for us to be able to see our intersections and like undress some of these larger topics and just break down some of our walls and share, when we come into community, but also with each other. So I really appreciate that. And we're gonna go to group 3. So I just wanna give space for group 3 to be able to do their share out.
I'm not sure, Matrika and I, were we group 3?
I was not paying attention to the group numbers. I apologize, but
That's okay.
Yes, you guys were group
Yeah, I
group
think we're
3.
group 3.
okay, all right. We are going to each do one, and I'm going to lead with mine. So, mine is I am from a Superfund queen on August 15th, but she no longer breathes. That's mine. And Tamara?
Yes. I am from the Blue Ridge Mountains, born free and independent. I am not from a people who lack pride, dignity, and self-reliance. I am from a sacred space. I am not from a space of defeat.
And then I don't know if anybody else wants, or my team is going to go, but I have a couple of more that I have.
Take it away.
Okay. I am from Don't Take That Medicine, but Drink This Tea. I'm from Generations of Carpenters. HGTV has nothing on me. I am from Where Brotherly Love and Concrete Jungle begat a pretty girl. That's with the capital P and G. I am from the land of great food insecurities.
Yes, just gotta show love to group number 3. I was putting some of my comments in the chat. Take this tea and come on, PG County. I just want to open up the space for at least one other person to give a comment about group 3's share out, something that resonated with you with the story they told. Or maybe something you have more questions about.
Something that resonated with me. I am new to DC, and my first experience was in PG County. That is where, and to this day, I recommend that's where anybody gets their hair done or braided if they do need it, PG Mall. And I have definitely heard a lot of opinions about PG County and all the things, but what really struck me is that PG County stands for Pretty Girl County. And that always warms my heart just knowing that that is another way to understand PG County.
I received that.
Yes, thank you.
I love all the PG love.
Yeah, come on, Nikki. Pretty Girl County. Come on, we both PG residents. Come on, represent.
I see Nikki smiling ear to ear, echoing the sentiment. And I also just have to shout out to Nadine's hair braiding too. But yes, whether we're talking about something cultural like braiding our hair, or like how Africans being stolen were braiding seeds into their hair so that they could plant on soil when they landed. There's always, you know, a lighter level you can go, but more depth that you can go with speaking with community too. And yeah, just love that things are resonating, like PG, and just opening up the conversation from there. I want to check the chat just to see if there's anything else here before we move on to group 2. I'm seeing that it's a good team building exercise for highlighting strengths. Definitely want to hear where you guys can see yourselves using this. But for now, I'll go to group 2. Nikki, can you share a few of the names that were in group 2 in case they're not aware who it was?
Group 2 was Alma, Jen, Jessica Berger, Kevin, and Obed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I didn't know which group I was, actually. I guess maybe because Jessica created a whole document, so maybe we can read our parts. So my part is the first one.
Oh, give me a second, Alma. Jess, did you want to share the Google document? I think Mariah enabled screen sharing for you guys.
We can. Alma, you feel free to read from the Google Doc. We were using it as like a tool to collaborate, but
okay. So
we don't necessarily have to screen share unless you want.
If you'd like to, it may be something different just for the group to be able to see.
Okay. I'll
Up to you.
share.
Up to you.
And then Alma, do you want to read?
I can read, yeah. If my part, I think maybe we could all read our own parts. What do you think?
Okay, sure.
Well, just one second. Let me interject though, because I do know that some people weren't comfortable sharing everything. So I think the point of this exercise was to have like a collective experience so that we don't necessarily know who wrote what unless people want us to know. So I think it's better if you read the whole thing. And then if anybody from your group wants to attribute a certain line to themselves, they're welcome to do that. And then I will stop the recording for that part if they don't want to share.
Okay, I can do that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me just open that document. I lost where. Okay. I am from people that embraces adversity as an opportunity to grow stronger. I come from people who cares about others and embrace diversity. I come from people who believe we all belong to Mother Earth. I come from people that believe that we all are connected through our heart and that we all have that in common. My people care about the land. My people are guests on this land. My people are immigrants to this land. My people respect and learn from the original stewards of this land. I am from a place without false promises, the Great Lakes, a future of hope, a place where people embrace vulnerability, where our differences are celebrated. The land gives us happiness. I am from a neighborhood with a lot of trees. I am from a supportive family. I am not from the States, but I am also from the States. I am from a walkable city. I am from a neighborhood with a park nearby. I am from a city with an active public transportation. The cry of earth. The earth suffers, humans cry. Inequalities and injustice persist. Climate change threatens us all. The poor pay the price, the rich profit. We must act, we must change, protect the planet, defend human rights, fight against inequalities, build a just world. We are all humans can live in peace, where all humans can live in peace. So, social and climate justice is a right. We must defend it, standing in solidarity. Be the voice for the voiceless, the defenders of the earth. Create a better world where all can live in harmony. That's it.
Thank you. I saw a lot of reactions. Just want to give space for if one person may have a comment or question.
Great job, group 2.
Yes. If no one had a comment or question, I wanted to move to group 1.
All right, group 1 was James, Samia, Cheryl, and Stephanie.
Okay, hi. So I'm going to be reading what my group said, and then Stephanie will follow up with hers. So I am from hills and tea fields. I am from a drive to make the world a better place for my children and grandchildren and all those I come in contact with. I am from prayers and family gatherings. I am not from polluters, and I am not from quiet land.
I am from the South during the day when I could leave the door unlocked, walk barefoot outside, staying outside all day, eating watermelon, picking strawberries, making homemade ice cream. I'm from culture that respect our elders, Big Mama. I am thankful for being a native of this land.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Was that everything from group 1? I really resonated with the watermelon. I'm over here drinking this watermelon that I juiced.
I saw something Octavia put in the chat. She says, "Big Mama." I know that's right. Um, so I'll tell you guys a funny story that resonated with me because um, my grandparents were the very maternal, and they did the cooking and all of that stuff. And you can go to just pop by on a Sunday. Sunday dinner was happening and everything. But with my mom is a young grandmother, so she's just 70. But my daughter asked her, Grandma, uh, what do you think you're going to be like as a grandparent? And my mom immediately says, "Well, I ain't gonna be no big mama, that's for sure." She says you have to schedule time for my great grandkids to come because I have a life to lead. So I just thought that was so funny because it's like different things are generational and how we all connect with one another. And I'm the eldest sibling of 4. And I think I've sort of taken on that role because my sister and her friends would come from school, and my sister's like, "Come to my house. My sister has food." Like, it's different things of that nature. So those lines really resonated with me. Thank y'all for sharing those.
Yes, thank you to everyone who shared. I was getting back into sharing my screen. Let me see. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. Wasn't showing up on my end, so I wasn't sure. So I know we're going to have a bit longer. I'll have to hear from Nikki when our pausing point is, but just wanted to go into a little bit more about like what we were exploring and some questions to sit with and think with. And again, we'll keep going throughout for part 2 for tomorrow. Nikki, do you know what our stopping time was for today?
Yeah, so you have about 5 minutes left, and then I will, because I know we got started a little late on your portion. So you got about 5 minutes, and then I'll offer some brief reminders and set expectations for tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. So really appreciate everybody for taking part in the exercises. Again, we did the my people and the I'm from. I definitely would love for folks to share in the chat how they could see themselves using this in their work. And thank you everyone for being vulnerable. Really what we're trying to get to with our storytelling and with these kind of exercises is our personal connection to nature. So some other questions that you can always start community meetings, just organizing circles that you're hosting, just even in casual conversation while you may be canvassing or walking around in your neighborhood or in your community or doing even like state or national level work is what was your earliest memory of being in nature, which I know some of it came up unintentionally with some of the works we just did. Is there a place outside that feels sacred or safe to you? Why? Just bringing back that nobody just woke up and said, I'm going to do environmental justice. Maybe you got to share in the chat if that's what you did. But normally it's somehow tied to our place, our space, our identity, our story. And so really get into the heart of like why people are interested in doing this work, whether they're doing legal work, whether they're doing something that's around community organizing, whether they're advocate or they're just speaking up about what's happening with their family. How does your race, culture, community shape your experience in the environment? Really, how do you and your family, how have y'all been impacted by pollution or even breaking that word down further, unsafe water, things heating up, things cooling down when we talk about climate change? What stories do we all carry about that? What stories are we trying to support in that work? It may not be our own personal stories, it may be the communities we're fighting for. What does environmental justice really mean to you personally, is what I'm saying. And then it often goes back to lineage, ancestry, where we've had to migrate from, or where the land we're currently occupying. What stories from nature have been passed down in your family? And you will get this deck to go through these questions and journal a little bit more, maybe use different examples of these questions in your own work. Where do your ancestors come from? What are the ancestors of the people currently occupying the land you're working on? What is the relationship to farming, to water, to sky, to the land? What is your relationship to stolen or sacred land? What responsibilities do you hold? I know a lot of us do land acknowledgements at the start of our work of the original Aboriginal or Native folks of that land. And so really holding that responsibility as well and making sure we're centering those voices in our space or seeking them out if we're not currently aware. Also, a big thing with promoting change and really whether it's scholars, behaviors, really fighting and pushing the needle forward, a lot of times it can involve emotions and that can lead to action. So like what emotions come up when you think about not only the climate crisis, but your relationship to land, earth, sea, when you think about the sky, when you think about the air. I know sometimes I'm a fire sign, but that's why I have that fire there. Maybe some of y'all relate. But I sometimes get really angry when I see what industry has been able to do around the world. When I think about global reparations and like how much the US has like overprocessed and been extractive in these other countries. That makes me upset. And it pushes me to want to galvanize that anger into making change, into fighting for what's right. So thinking about those emotions and like how you shift them into action, or maybe they're just the thing fueling you to make these movements forward. You can always talk to people of any age around what, if any emotions come up for them. If the earth could speak, what do you think it would say? What would you say back? This is different ways to use a metaphor. In some ways, the earth can be speaking to us with not producing the same crop yield, right? The earth can be showing us with dead fish in the water. The earth can be showing us with some more particulate matter in the air causing asthma and things. It's speaking back to us. And what are some things in nature that you want to protect and why? And it's not just the natural environment, but we can think about the built environment too. This is just some creative prompts to think about that sometimes you can utilize as well. Writing a letter to a tree, a river, or animal about what's important to you. I like to make everything like basically just an easy literacy level anyone can engage with. Some communities we may go into may have different reading levels or feel more comfortable doing certain types of exercises. So we always want to break it down into something that can be very simple and can lead to a lot of self-expression so that everyone can share what their views are, what their impact is to what's happening. You can tell a story of your neighborhood from the perspective of a plant or from trash, or another element like wind or water, maybe even fire. I was really able to hear a lot of interesting things from the creative prompt of working with an activist who actually was from the area in Los Angeles where the Altadena fires took place. And he was just talking about like the perspective from fire. So it can also be following, a natural disaster that's occurred. Um, Create a found poem using words you hear on a walk outside or using sounds that you hear from a walk outside. I've been able to do that with a youth group before where we just focus on onomatopoeias or, of the wind. Sometimes the grumbling of gravel under a trash truck. Just hearing the leaves crunch under our feet and going from there to create words around what they're hearing in their outside neighborhood. And then lastly, describing a world, excuse me, where your community lives in harmony with nature. We also are talking about the right now. You noticed throughout our exercise, we talked about the past, the present, but we also have to remember that futurism and what we want to see and manifest. So you can also talk about the future of maybe not what's currently present, but what you're trying to vision with the community. And doing this can be a great way to do community vision sessions about maybe what things you want to work towards. What can you smell, see, hear, feel, bringing in the senses. And then also, this is the last thing I'll go over today, and we'll pick up here with tomorrow. And I appreciate everyone just having an open mind, heart, and just being willing to share. And yeah, this is just more about what brings you to the work. What are you tending to telling your story? So sometimes I just ask people to share like what's full blown within your story, meaning what's a forest, what is extremely developed. I would say for me is like being a storyteller. What's something that maybe you're trying to nurture? You have a little bit of experience in, but you're still cultivating it. You're still really like kind of still like, making sure that you're watching that crop to make sure a pest doesn't take it out and you're still working on it. And for me, I'm still nurturing, understanding like climate finance and like what my role is in the overall movement of today. And then like something that's a bud, maybe something new that's really starting to take root for you, but it's brand new. And I know like there's some new areas of the world, such as like Asia, where it's still like a bud for me. And I haven't really had many experience there, but I know there's definitely some connectivity to work I've done in other places and in my own place that they're experiencing there. And I want to learn more. So yeah, you can always have this as just a check-in for full-blown nurturing and a bud. Sometimes you can also do like grows and glows, something that you're growing towards and that maybe could be an improving space that you can hear back for quick feedback from anything you're doing in community, but also glows, something that was a highlight, something that people really enjoyed. So if you want to share any glows or grows from today in the chat, would really appreciate it. Again, it's just glows and grows. And we'll start out with some more exercises and with part 2 tomorrow. But I just really appreciate everyone for showing up and just making space for me to share and just bringing your authentic self.
Thank you, Mariah. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around. It's 2:36. I won't keep you much longer. I did just want to share a few quick reminders to prepare us for tomorrow. So we would love for you to put any takeaways, just like you, Mariah said, in the chat. Please put those in the chat. But tomorrow we are back here at 10 a.m. sharp, 10 a.m. That's Eastern Daylight Time. Those of you not in the US, please be sure to use your time converters, set your alarms to join us back here at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Tomorrow, we will also be joined for a brief moment by our Associate Executive Director, Chris White. Some of you met our Executive Director, Dr. Jacoby Wilson, who joined us earlier on during the Fellows Program. So please be sure to join us tomorrow for a brief welcome message from Chris White. And then I also wanted to share with everybody, if you want to make sure you see or get to meet or visit Mariah in person, please sign up for this year's symposium. Mariah is going to be moderating a session that we have surrounding storytelling, and she's also going to um, be an artist spotlight at one of our sessions this year, one of our plenaries, excuse me. So please definitely come back tomorrow or sign up for 2025 symposium. I'll have more information about that for everyone, but right now you are free and welcome to go. It is 2:38 now. But I'm happy to stay on for another 5 minutes to give people the opportunity to network, or if you want to verbally share some of your key takeaways and how you enjoyed today, we would welcome those as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Nikki. And I also just wanted to highlight that I did share the book that folks were asking about in the chat. And I was surprised, but I actually see where they have a free PDF version online. So if anyone is interested in having that as a tool, it's again, Aboriginal artists from the Jellicoe Cultural Center up in the Gold Coast of Australia. And it's illustrated and written by folks of that nation. And this is just an example of how storytelling can be utilized. Thank you for folks making comments. I see Octavia said that the glows were yapping, the grows, technical knowledge. Definitely feel that. Technology is great when it works. um, yes, and just looking back at other folks.